Roger Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live as we do every Tuesday and every Friday from the Boston Public Library in Copley Square. And we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
You know the great Groucho Marx line? This is a paraphrase. There's nothing like being well prepared, and this is nothing like being well prepared.
Well,
we're not really on our game yet
today,
but we'll pick up the pace as the day goes along. So it's obviously the page one story, leads the news on every newspaper, every news show in America. Hurricane Ian has devastated huge sections of Florida's coastline. It's gaining strength, making its way toward a second U.S. landfall. This is in South Carolina. We've all seen the pictures of the devastation in Florida. Businesses, homes, not just those of wealthy people, destroyed, lives ruined, lost. Got us thinking about here in the coastal areas that could be or will be devastated as more frequent and more powerful storms batter our coast due to climate change. So the phone and text lines are open at 877-301-8970. Is it over on our coastlines? Has climate change won? Is it time to stop throwing good money after bad, to stop rebuilding on our coasts and retreat from the shore in places like Florida, Cape Cod, Plum Island? Is it time to acknowledge it's too late for some spots? And if it is, are you prepared for this psychologically? Which kinds of places, what places are you going to miss most? Again, the line is 877-301-8970. You know, for those who think this is too gloomy and doomy, let me read to you from the Boston Globe 9 years ago. 9 years ago. This is a quote from the guy who was the head of the Department of Environmental Protection in Massachusetts. Took about 100 years for the coastline to recede 100 feet. It has now receded another 100 feet since 1994. Again, this is 2013. Those homes are at risk and will continue to be at risk because of the sea level rise and the retreating shoreline that's picking up in pace in ways that none of us can predict or stop. Those are large geologic forces that no one is capable of stopping. I mean, that is the future, unfortunately.
Well, you know, I have been transfixed watching this hurricane, and the footage and the camera work has been unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
They had a guy, they were in a helicopter last night on CNN going over Fort Myers, which looks like a nuclear bomb has exploded there. Just rubble and whole sections of the coastline taken out. And you know, they're on, we just heard them on the news say, well, we're gonna rebuild. And you have to say to yourself at some point, first of all, they're not going to be able to rebuild because people don't have the insurance to allow them to rebuild unless they're millionaires or billionaires. They're not going to have the money to raise their houses up on stilts like people have done. They do it on the Cape in Barnstable Harbor. They do it in Westport. You see it all over the place. People
Chuck Todd was talking about his own mother in that kind of conundrum.
Yeah, but all I can think about is, you know, enjoy it now, because the place you've gone to and had a drink and, you know, in Falmouth on the waterfront may not be there for another 5 years, or you know, we talked about that great clam shack down in Nauset Beach that they rebuilt the clam shack because they thought at the time they'd have another 10 years before they really had to worry about it being swept out to sea. And then, what was it, the next year it was swept out.
It's in the ocean.
It was swept out to sea. So the impermanence, I guess, is really because obviously it's not just Florida, and as we know, because the water's getting warmer, that enables the hurricanes to travel more frequently and more viciously toward us in Boston and Cape Cod. I mean, Hurricane Sandy in New York City, if you were down there after Hurricane Sandy, you couldn't believe what you saw. So there's a sense that places you've lived in all your life or visited all your life or vacationed at all your life, they may not be around for long, and it is very psychologically upsetting.
It's really hard.
I think so. And the idea of rebuilding, I think they're going to find that is not going to happen, particularly for people, you know, you feel terrible for the people that just retired and they said, we're going to put our nest egg and we're going to get an inexpensive trailer down on the water in Florida, and that's where we're going to live out our days. And of course, they're not going to live out their days there because of this hurricane, and they're not going to be able to rebuild.
877-301-8970. We're talking about coastline destruction and whether the reality that we have to accept is it's not going to be what it was. If you're not willing to accept that reality, make your case. That's perfectly fine. If you are you getting nostalgic? I mean, you know, if you were to say to me, tell me the 10 most memorable places you've ever been in your life, I would say probably 9 of them have been
on the water,
on the coast. You know, whether it's a restaurant or someone else's,
Yeah.
I don't have a house on the coast, but someone else's house, whether it's here or another coastline somewhere else in the world. And it is hard to accept, but as this guy Kimmel, the commissioner of the Department of Environmental Protection, said, again, this is 9 years ago in the globe, those are large geologic forces that no one is capable of stopping. 877-301-8970. You're also a Cape Cod part-time resident,
I am.
obviously.
I am.
So it must be even, I mean, I go there as, you know, a week or two every year. That's got to be really, is that really hard for you,
Well,
right?
I've always taken some solace in that I'm quite a ways from the ocean. But, you know, after you see what's happened to Orlando or these other sections of inner Florida, which were in the path of this hurricane, I think about that. I think about that selfishly. I think about, you know, a million years ago when my father bought the little cottage down there, which we have added on to, and now it's a bigger house. Thoughts of this were a million miles away. You had your little piece of paradise, and you were going to have it, and maybe you're going to pass it on to your children, as my parents did, or pass it on to your grandchildren, as people did. There's a great story about these people in Barnstable Harbor down the Cape that they've lived there through generations, you know, the great-grandfather, the grandfather, now the son, now the children, and they're putting their house up on stilts because they can afford to do that, which is pretty expensive because they're right on the ocean, and it's hard to pull back from those things. But it does, on the other hand, you know, for people that really aren't invested in the sense they don't have businesses or property on the water, I suppose you could say, if there's anything good about this, well, there'll be a lot more open waterfront that people can just walk to because, as I said before, when you look at the situation in Florida, flood insurance rates, people know, have gone up. A lot of people can't afford to get the flood insurance rates. And even if they do have the flood insurance, it's not necessarily enough to rebuild those things again, unless you're someone that has, you know, a lot of money that can do it. So it's the impermanence, I guess, of things that you thought were fairly permanent. That's all up for grabs. So it's upsetting. 877-301-8970, 877-301-8970. How do you feel about this? What are you laughing
I'm
at?
like the climate deniers. This is a texter who didn't say, we'll never stop rebuilding. Those of us who believe in science will have to make smart choices for our families and future generations regarding where we choose to live. Do you remember the discussion we had here 6 or 7 years ago on the radio about some house on Plum Island that had been rebuilt time and time and time again, I think with primarily federal funds? That's even not much of an issue anymore. What FEMA will fund is very limited. The issue is also individuals spending money. I mean, should governments get involved and say, even if you have the money to rebuild, should you be rebuilding? Because when there's a crisis like this, obviously there are a limited set of resources that government has to come to the rescue of people. And should this be part of their task? I don't think so.
Well, there was a story in the Newburyport News from this summer about Newbury, Salisbury, and Newbury are part of a $9 million federal project involving the Army Corps of Engineers. That's tax money, dredging all these the sand. And I just texted a source of mine up there who lives in that area, who's big into environmental issues, and she said, like lots of other environmentalists do, that it's a fool's errand, that it's not going to change anything, that some people even think that it makes erosion worse to do this kind of dredging. And her argument is that it's been pushed by a lot of people that have property up there and want to hold on to Plum Island. But if you've been to Plum Island, even in the last 10 years, you see these precariously perched houses, you know, with the sand has disappeared underneath them, or the dunes have disappeared underneath them. So, again, it's only a matter of time up there. But I get it. Like, if you've lived there and your great-grandfather bought a little shack up there in 1905, you don't want to leave it. But it's not just people with property. Like I said, how many times have you gone to the Beachcomber down in Wealthy? You vacation down there.
No, I don't go very often because you can't get in. I mean, it is.
Well, I mean,
by the way, for those who don't know, it is the venue. It's right on the ocean.
Yep.
It is an incredible locale. It's a great place to get a drink in the afternoon, but it is literally the parking lot is closed, I'd say 99 out of 100 times, because it's packed in a nanosecond.
And you you vacation on Cape Cod, you go to where the harbor is in Hyannis. There are all these great restaurants that are like overlooking, you know, the water. They're overlooking where the ferries are. You go to Falmouth, you sit on the flying bridge that's been there forever and a day. You sit out there, you look out the water, and you have a cocktail. I mean, these are places where people vacation, and these are places that people have grown up on. So it's really tough. You know, Bill McKibben, who's our favorite environmentalist, who knows everything about this, just wrote a piece for the New Yorker. He also writes for Substack about Hurricane Ian. And as everybody knows, Ron DeSantis, when he was a congressman, was opposed to giving any federal funds for Hurricane Sandy. He thought that was a terrible idea, the one that hit New York. They shouldn't have any money. But of course, now he's begging for money from President Biden, who's been incredibly gracious about Ron DeSantis' sudden turn of thought about what he needs down there in Florida. But anyway, he quotes, Bill McKibben does in his piece, Ron DeSantis talking about his level of concern about global warming last year. What I found, DeSantis said, is when people start talking about things like global warming, they typically use that as a pretext to do a bunch of left-wing things that they would want to do anyways. We are not doing any left-wing stuff.
Well, I mean, Ron Paul and Rand Paul from Texas used to vote against every single federal bailout in a disaster, with one exception, the district that the father represented in Texas. You guys have been waiting a long time. Our apologies. Alex in Rhode Island, you're first on Boston Public Radio. What's up?
Hi, I just finished producing a film in Rhode Island on climate change.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, thank you. Where we did 8 episodes. And I think people just don't understand that as things progress with the climate, they're going to have to look at life being different in terms of where they live. This is only the beginning of many things to come. People need to also think about, which is something we covered, about growing food in the face of climate change, and things that can be done with growing food that can actually help the atmosphere to make things better.
Hey, what's your film, Alex? Where do you find your film? What's your film?
Well, it's in editing right now.
Oh, okay.
It won't be out. It won't be out until November on Rhode Island PBS.
Call us. Hey, call us. Oh, PBS. Alex, when it's out, give us a call to our producers, and we'll give you a call. Alex, thanks very much for the call. 877-301-8970.
Almost everywhere you go in Rhode Island is on the water. And I was mentioning how I was down there a few weeks ago, and well, actually, this is a Westport beach, but the Westport beach, famous beach, Horseneck Beach, is down there. It's a big, huge public beach. Now it has rocks all over it, sadly, but the beach is so diminished from where it was. I mean, high tide comes, you're practically in the bushes trying to get away from the ocean.
That guy, Alex just said, I mean, people, it's a variation on what we've been saying. People have to re-examine where they live and play and kind of thing. I mean, there's certain things that are rescuable if we do the right thing, a la the Bill McKibbens of the world and the $400 billion out of Congress. There's certain things that are not. And as this guy said, again, 9 years ago, it's just a matter of time.
Sue's from Framingham just texted and said, for most of the country, our most memorable places are not the coast. I'm from Colorado. There's a whole world of wonders away from the coast. That is a good point. How are the mountains doing out in Colorado? The Rockies doing okay, Sue? Are they in trouble too because they're not getting the snow cover they used to get out there? But that is true. The mountains are actually gorgeous. But I haven't grown up in the mountains.
I wasn't talking about it. I'm talking about me.
Oh, okay.
It's all about me. Craig in Fall River, you're next on Boston Public Radio. Craig, what's up?
Hey, guys. I just wanted to give a plug for a friend of mine, Elizabeth Rush. She wrote a book that was a finalist for Pulitzer Prize 2 years ago called The Rising. And she's from Beverly originally. She's a professor at Brown University in Providence now. She talks extensively about the effect in Mass and Rhode Island. It's a really poetic, incredibly good piece of literature. Nonfiction, but she
Understood.
talks to people in the bio. And I highly recommend it for anyone who's concerned about Mass and Rhode Island being drowned.
Well, Craig, we'll check it out. But before you hang up, having read it and living in Fall River, what's your prospect of what our coastlines look like in the future?
Well, as Marjorie knows, in Fall River you don't have to worry because it's so high on the hill, right, Marjorie?
Well, but okay, Craig, as long as we're on the subject of my hometown, how about the Tipsy Seagull? You ever go there for a cocktail? It's right on the water, right?
Is it?
Yeah, you go out in a pier. That's tipsy seagull because the pier is tipping back and forth. You can't tell if I had too much to drink or the waves getting bigger. But I mean, that's in jeopardy, Craig, right?
That's true. That would be a blow to Fall River for sure.
Yeah, that would be a blow.
Craig knows about the tipsy
The tipsy
seagull,
seagull.
obviously. Craig,
and the
thank
cove,
you.
I mean, there's a lot of places in my hometown that are right on the water. So, it would be, thank goodness most of us are further up the hill, but a lot of people are right on the water. We're talking
Do you
about...
think I'm sorry to interrupt you. I remember this story that I've now cited 3 times from the Globe 9 years ago, and I was stunned that a public official, this DEP guy, had the courage to say it's over, which is essentially what he said. Are public officials willing to say to their constituents, is DeSantis or McKee in Rhode Island or Baker and whoever the next governor is, willing to say businesses and homeowners, when there's a storm, we're not going to rebuild. We're not going to support you rebuilding. There aren't going to be federal and state loans because it's over.
What would you say is the verb you've heard at least 100 times in the last 2 days on television?
What is it?
Rebuilding. Rebuilding.
So the answer is no, they won't.
Well, I guess they're not saying it out loud, but when you read the stories out of Florida about the lack of money with which to rebuild, you realize it's kind of, they're telling people things that aren't true. And I think a lot of the homeowners, particularly the people that are not people of means that have moved there for their retirement, and they've also built up this coast dramatically in a shorter period of time, they realize that that's not going to happen. Anyway, we're talking about Hurricane Ian, hurricanes in general. How do you feel about our coast, our city? We are the 3rd most likely to be flooded city in America behind Miami and New York City. 877-301-8970, 877-301-8970.
Parisians love their markets and picking out their own fresh foods, but the age of instant delivery has arrived. Your online order goes straight to a warehouse and your food arrives within minutes. Not everyone likes the idea.
I don't think it's a good idea for Europeans. It's better to get outside of your home.
Why some Parisians insist on doing their own shopping, it's on the world.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you and Bryant University, dedicated to educating and inspiring graduate and undergraduate students to excel as innovative leaders prepared to make a difference around the world. Learn more at bryant.edu. And Tools of the Mind, the research and play-based curriculum combines professional development and a comprehensive pre-K and K curriculum designed to build self-regulation skills. Learn more at toolsofthemind.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marge-Regan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, as we are every single Friday and Tuesday, too. Streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. You know, Marjorie, during the break, I was thinking, there's nothing better to do when you have a 3-hour radio show on a Friday to start with death and destruction. It really gets people in the kind of mood you really want to get them in for the weekend. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about our relationship with coastlines here in the U.S., not just Florida, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Maine, whatever. Now that climate change is quickly and dramatically reshaping them, and is there a new reality that we got to acknowledge and think differently, build differently, rebuild differently? 877-301-8970. If I were to tell people to read one story, the story I'd read is, you cited before, Nestor Ramos, who's no longer with the Globe, was a great writer, great reporter. He wrote a long piece. Remember, that was the piece that, the first time I read, that the Gulf of Maine was the fastest growing, heating up body of water on the planet. Faster than 99% of the water. He's the one who wrote the story about John and Liam Oman, if that's how you pronounce it.
The clam shack.
Who own Liam's clam shack. Again, they have experts come in. You have 10 years to go. A year later, their clam shack is in the ocean. I used to go there, by the way, not too long ago. That's the story, in any case. So here's an interesting text that says better than what I was trying to say before. It's also inconsiderate to continue stubbornly rebuilding in areas like this, regardless of whether someone can afford it. It puts other people at risk, the first responders who come to help in times of crisis like this. I think it's a wonderful point.
Yeah, the Daily, which is my favorite podcast, had a interview this morning with someone who stayed, and I think they were in Fort Myers. I could be wrong. It might have been Sarasota. Anyway, they stayed, and they talked about how fast the water rose. And 1 minute they're in the house, they got the generator going, they're watching TV, the guy's going about his business, making his coffee, and all of a sudden he looks out in the street and he sees the water on the street, and then he notices a current in the water like it's a river, and he's noticing the little white caps are building up on the street. And he said he grabbed his cats and he got out of there, and he said if he waited another 5 minutes,
Gone.
because I don't understand why, but apparently the water can rise really, really fast, and that's one of the phenomenons of this whole situation with Ian. Here's a great text, Jim. You can answer this question. Why did Boston build in the seaport?
Well, we discussed this with David. Abel's doing a film about
doing
it,
a
isn't he,
film.
from the Boston Globe?
Yeah.
And that will answer your question, so
And
stay tuned.
Guess what he's calling it?
What's it called?
What's the word for flooding? The big word for getting sunk underwater. Well, anyway, I'll think of it, Marjorie. In her
Liza-
head, forgot the word.
Liza and Groton, you're next on Boston Public Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Oh, thanks so much.
Thank you.
We have an old family house in Provincetown
Oh,
that was built in 1834 by my relatives. I believe it's the oldest continuously, one family owned house in town.
wow.
And we've spent the last 20 years putting everything extra we have into it to try to keep it in good shape and be able to hand it off to my kids who are in their 20s. And now I think every day, should we sell it? Should we keep it? The corner of the kitchen is 9 feet above sea level. When they told us we needed to get flood insurance because of that, when they changed the boundaries on flooding, we talked about whether we'd cut off the corner of the kitchen, but apparently that wasn't an option. So these are things that I think about every day, and I know my kids do because we
bet.
spent so much time down there working on the house.
Well,
every April school vacation.
I have spent part of every summer, you may know, Liza, for the last several decades in Provincetown. And my advice to you as someone who is an expert in real estate, buy a cottage in Fitchburg. I mean, that you are exactly who we are talking about. Are you on Commercial Street? Where are you?
We are on Bradford Street, right
Bradford.
at the corner of behind the community center.
Oh, really? Okay. Bradford, for those who don't know, there are essentially two streets in Provincetown. I assume most people know this. There's Commercial Street and Bradford. We wish you luck, Eliza. And as you make your decision, stay in touch with us. We wish you a lot of luck. That is the conundrum. Can you imagine being in that situation? One of the
No.
oldest houses in P-Town. You want to give it to your kids who are in the 20s. What'd she say, her porch or whatever is pretty
Yep.
close to current sea level. I would say they're in real big trouble, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of time. Now, you may, who knows? I mean, as was pointed out, this area of Florida hadn't had a bad hurricane like this for 100 years, but it was also pointed out that in the last 50 years, there have been, I think, 7 categories. Have been the last 10 years, so you see that because of the warming water, the hurricanes are getting more vicious and they're stalling more and stuff like that. So that's what's weird about it. Provincetown may last another 100 years. It depends on whether it's not looking like it will, but the nor'easters come in like it did and took out the clam shack. That wasn't even a hurricane; it was just a nor'easter.
Well, that lasted a year, so that's maybe a cautionary tale. Linda in a car. You're on Boston Public Radio. What's up?
Hi, how are you?
I'm depressing myself, but other than that, never better.
Yeah.
What's up?
Me too. I actually don't think that we should be giving federal funds or state funds to anybody, especially in Massachusetts, to the houses on the ocean, unless we get fair use of the water and the beaches.
Oh, you are
That's a
singing
good
my
point.
song,
Good
Linda.
point.
Yep. Like in states like Hawaii and I believe California, you have to have access. You don't own that beach because that is a natural resource for everybody. And until we do that in Massachusetts, my stance is we don't pay a dime and neither does the federal.
Well, Linda, if you want to get even angrier than you sound, go to the GBH website, gbhnews.org, and check out the brilliant series that was done on the beaches. And what we learned is only 12% of the beaches in Massachusetts is public access allowed? And because a lot of that public access, so to speak, is in a place where the parking lot's going to be full or is not open to people who don't live in that community in the summer, the number's actually far lower. And you're right, we are an outlier. And your solution is a wonderful one, by the way. Linda, thanks for the call. How do you feel about that? If you're going to give money, to state or federal money to help to rebuild, in a state like Massachusetts, you can't limit access to the beach to the public. How about that?
I think Linda's got a great point.
I love that.
I think she's got a great point. So I was mentioning the David Abel film.
Yeah.
Okay, we used to call the seaport the Innovation District.
Yeah.
And really, it wasn't that long ago that we started building up there. The ICA moved there in 2006. The Institute of Contemporary Art used to be a bunch of parking lots, and now that's a whole area down there, Fan Pier Convention Center, and all that kind of stuff. Well, his film about the Innovation District is going to be called the Inundation
Oh, that's
District.
pretty good.
And
That's pretty sad, but it's pretty good.
As the texture said, why did we do this? 2006 was not that long ago. We knew that sea level was a big problem down there, and we just built up this whole massive neighborhood with all these restaurants, all these office buildings, all these extremely expensive
Apartment buildings, condos. Do you remember when, years ago, when we started work, essentially it was the Moakley Courthouse.
That was it.
A couple of fish
The
joints
ICA.
on the water. I don't even know if this is even pre-ICA, and parking lots, as you say. The no-name fish place, which had been there for
Right.
about 400 years, and that sort of thing. Sally in Newbury, you're next on Boston Public Radio. What's your deal?
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Pleasure.
So I don't live on the island, but I live on High Road, which is
Yeah.
very near. And
Yep.
a number of years ago, there was a big project pushed through the Newburyport and Newbury to bring sewer and water to the island. And it caused a lot more building because before there was a sewer line, a lot of the spots were unbuildable on the island. And this has added to the problem of overpopulation and the terrible beach erosion there. There's hardly any beach left. Houses have been built on the dunes, which have destroyed them. And now they're going to bring sand from the Merrimack at almost $20 million cost to refurbish the beaches. And they've done this before.
You sound pretty happy about this, Sally. Are you?
Well, Margie knows how I feel about this.
Yeah, this is
a buddy of yours?
This is a buddy of mine that I talked to a lot
hey,
about
Sally.
the
I didn't know it was that
situation up
Sally.
in-
How are you?
Yeah, it's a fool's errand, right? It's not going to work.
No, and there have been a lot of man-made projects to try to shore up the island, and serious studies have proven that this actually added to the erosion. But it's controversial up here because people like living there and they want to preserve their property, but it's going to probably be bisected, the island is, because the basin side, which faces the inland part of the coast.
Hey, Sally,
getting
let me just
bigger.
tell you, please don't use your relationship with Marjorie to advance your personal agenda on this show anymore.
Well,
Okay?
I didn't
I'm
say
sick of it.
anything to the screener.
Hey, Sally, it's great to hear from you.
This is my dear friend
Thanks.
and my freshman college roommate,
That's
Sally.
great,
That was a
Sally.
great call.
That's great. No-
We're out of time.
Also,
Yeah, go ahead.
can I say one more thing?
Sure. You may.
So, with regard to yesterday's conversation about smoking pot, I have to say that I was introduced
By Marjorie
to,
Egan.
many years
What a
by my
shock.
college roommate.
That's right.
Who was that again? I'm sorry. Who was it?
My fault.
my freshman college roommate. So I owe her a huge debt of gratitude.
Yeah, so do we all, Sally. Sally,
And a
that-
lot of enlightenment.
A lot of enlightenment. That's
Sally,
right.
you can stay on if you have any more stories from those days, do you?
Well,
I know you
actually I
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine. Next time. Sally, goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Was
Thank
this
you very
Smith
much
or
for calling.
Stanford? Where was
Smith.
it?
This is my freshman
Smith.
college roommate. She came from Iowa. Promised her
Oh,
parents.
Sally was from
Promised her
Iowa.
parents she would never smoke pot.
How'd that go?
Didn't go well. Things went by the boards about the third day of school. Anyway.
By the way, Plum Island, is really sort of ground zero for
It
a
is ground
lot of this
zero.
debate,
Yeah,
actually.
and she's right. I mean, when you look at these, why are we spending $20 million to do something that's not going to make a difference?
By
Anyway,
the way, this is not a bad topic. When Governor Baker is here in in October. And Michelle Wu is going to be with us a week from Tuesday. This is a topic we should broach with her as well, since the seaport is part of her jurisdiction.
And we have a GBA story today that talks about the hospitals. Even a Hurricane 1 or Category 2 would put hospitals right here in danger, including the great Mass
MGH,
General.
I know.
So anyway, we're moving on to a subject Jim can really get his arms around and his mouth around. Food, that is correct.
Thank you.
We got the owners of the much hype. Everybody is talking about this place, getting all sorts of award. Dear Annie in Cambridge. We'll ask about their secret ingredients to success, how they're managing to handle the biblical floods, speaking of floods, of new customers lining up after write-ups in the New York Times, and Bon Appetit. Lori Friel and Andrew Brady join us next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
It's been 9 months since Mayor Wu's clearing of Mass and Cass, but many people experiencing homelessness have returned. I'm Soraya Wintersmith. Join me tonight as we discuss where the mayor's efforts stand now and what more Boston needs. Plus, the White House is pushing to end hunger in less than 10 years. We'll talk to Massachusetts lawmakers working on the issue here at home. All that on Talking Politics tonight at 7 on GBH2 and online at gbhnews.org.
Support for GBH comes from you and Advocates, hosting their annual gala on November 10th at Fenway Park. The evening will include behind-the-scenes tours, photos with championship trophies, dinner, and more. Information at advocates.org. And Walden Local Meat, 100% grass-fed and pasture-raised beef, pork, and chicken from local farms, hand-delivered to your door. Committed to supporting a better food system. Membership options and more at waldenlocalmeat.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Jim Browdy. She is Marjorie. And we're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Before I introduce our next guest, I think that we got to be candid with listeners. The reason we invite restaurateurs on, 1, we love eating out. 2, we love good food. And 3, we hope it'll get us into a restaurant that we can't get into otherwise. Let's hope today. We're joined by Lauren Friel and Andrew Brady. They're the owners and operators of a place called Dear Annie, a small seafood and wine bar in Cambridge that's received quite a bit of attention over the past month. Bon Appetit listed them as one of the best new restaurants of the year anywhere, and the New York Times called them one of the 50 best restaurants in the United States. Restaurants they're most excited about in 2022. One would argue all that press comes with some issues. Surging interest brings long lines, wait times. Now we're here, arguably, to make that worse. Lauren and Andrew, congratulations, and it's great to see you both. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, talking about taking the country by storm. You guys are unbelievable. And Jim's very happy because look at what's right in front of them.
I am very
That's
happy.
Right.
We'll
Some
get to
food
that.
and some wine.
There's nothing like wine at 11:30 in the morning. That's always my motto.
You can have a sip or two. Then you can just go get an espresso and revive yourself. So let's start with you, Lauren. How'd you get together? How'd this happen?
Yeah, Andrew and I own businesses that are close to each other in Somerville. I own a wine bar called Rebel Rebel, and Andrew and his wife Sarah own a restaurant called Field and Vine. And yeah, we just kind of became friends, working and living in the same neighborhood together, and had the same ideas about food and restaurants and how we wanted to run them. And it was a little bit of a passion project. It kind of just grew organically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I've been to both your places. I haven't been to Dear Annie yet, so keep that in mind. But I have been to both your places.
He's going to give you his number before you leave.
I've been to both your places in Union Square. Have you guys been around long enough to know what a dump Union Square was? Literally, I'm serious. Like, I live about a mile away in Inman Square. Maybe even 10 years ago, there was virtually nothing there, and it's like a whole new world, isn't it, Lauren?
I moved to Union Square in 2004.
It was pretty bad then, wasn't it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, though. I think I really found a home and a community there. And it just ended up being a place that I don't know, I wanted to stay. I don't know, Andrew.
Yeah, I've been there for about 10 years, working there the whole time. And Field and Vine's been there for 5 years, so we've kind of been growing with it.
Yeah.
It's outpacing us, obviously, but we love it there, yeah.
So tell the concept of Dear Annie. I'm embarrassed to say, which reflects on me, not you, till I read the New York Times thing, which, by the way, said in Boston suburbs, like North Cambridge is a suburb of Boston. I hadn't heard of Dear Annie, but now that I've heard about it and talked to my friends, everybody is wild, not just because of the Times and Bon Appetit. What's the theme? What's the deal there?
Simply, we're just a pescatarian wine bar.
Neighborhood spot, which is kind of, we were also surprised that we were on the list, to be honest.
It's been shocking.
We were kind of like, how did they find us?
Who's Annie?
That's a great question. Annie's whoever you want her to be.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Okay.
Wait, there's obviously more to that story. Is there not? Is that it?
No, there is. We really we wanted the name to reflect that there was a level of intimacy and kind of comfort there. We wanted to be a neighborhood spot, and you know, having it called Dear Annie, it leaves it up for interpretation. You know, it's casual. You can come in, you can hang out, have a glass of wine, you can have dinner, you can have a snack, you can come with your kids, you can come on a date, you can come by yourself. You know, just we talk about it as more of like a reflection of pub culture, which we're kind of losing a lot, particularly in Boston. And that the name Dear Annie just felt intimate and kind of familial, and we really liked that.
And by the way, Andrew, I'm sorry, Margaret.
I was just going to say, this is, I mean, I'm not the food expert that here Mr. Brownie
I'm not an expert. I'm a consumer.
He's a big eater. He's a big restaurant guy.
We need you.
Yeah.
Big time.
But it does seem unusual. You mentioned the pub culture is kind of gone, but I don't think of a pescatarian wine bar as something I've even heard of until I heard of you guys.
Well, yeah, there probably aren't many of us, but we're just influenced by the way we like to eat is a lot of seafood and a lot of vegetables. And also, like, for sustainability reasons, decided to just kind of like leave meat out of this one. And just focus on the seafood and the vegetables. And that's kind of been guiding the menu. We vegetables kind of rotate seasonally. And then the seafood, we just try to use whatever's local.
So for those of us...
We had these guys on yesterday from Rare, and one of their items about how you personally can combat climate change, essentially, is go to Dear Annie. I mean, eat Dear Annie.
That's right.
I mean, that's the message.
But for those people who aren't big on fish, give me your hot vegetable dishes.
We've got some grilled cheeses that sell really well. So we do those. We have a tomato salad right now. We've got a potato salad right now, and what else do we have? We've got a bean dish.
Yeah.
So tomatoes obviously this is the time when the tomatoes
we're like
juiciest
this.
And reddest.
This close to being done with those, and we're moving to squash probably next week.
Oh, okay.
And then just to keep it rotating.
Moving to squash. So Lauren, let me be honest with you. Communal dining gives me hives. Sure. It really does.
Fair.
And then I have to be honest enough, every time I am forced to do it by somebody I'm close to or someone in my family, I have a totally different experience than the one I feared. But isn't there a segment of the population that just doesn't want to do it? And it is a communal dining deal, right?
It is, yeah. I will say, for those of you who are communal dining averse, we do have a few small tables along a banquette that afford a little bit more privacy. I think that, you know, communal dining can be really rewarding and really fun, and I think we're all inclined to want that kind of sense of privacy while we're dining. But as you just said, when we're kind of forced to do it, oftentimes we make new friends, we meet new people, we maybe get a dish that we wouldn't have gotten because we see the person next to us getting it, we can ask them about it, and it kind of opens up a little bit more exploration, I find, and a little bit more just of a community feeling, which is what I think we're all really missing. I will say that, like, this concept evolved in a different direction as we were kind of planning it during the pandemic. We were supposed to open before the pandemic. That didn't happen. And I think just the time that Andrew and my husband now and his wife Sarah ended up being a pod during the pandemic.
Wait a second, he's your husband too?
No.
Oh. I thought,
very experimental over there.
I'm sorry.
You know, it's Somerville. It's
Somerville, that's right.
free and easy. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
So before we, by the way, if you know us at all, you will pass the food, whatever it is, in my direction and the wine in Marjorie's direction. We'll do that in a second. No, I'm serious. You're also, when I'm thinking of you guys in Union Square, there's another restaurant, I'm sure you know the people, Juanma and Maria at Celeste, had a similar experience to you. Little tiny, wonderful Peruvian restaurant, and all of a sudden, I don't know which magazine, one of the great restaurants in America, and then they took off and they're doing all these things. So what's the impact when all of a sudden you wake up and Bon Appetit says you're one of the 50 best? The New York Times says in the suburbs, you're one of the 50 most exciting restaurants in America. How does that affect what you do? How does it affect you personally? And how does it affect the business?
You get really busy, it turns out.
Like the next day kind of thing?
Yeah,
Overnight.
the next day we're open. Yeah. I think the New York Times came out on a Monday, and that Wednesday night was like, we were closed on Tuesday. That Wednesday night was like just bananas.
Before you continue, what did it feel like when you were reading the piece in the Times? Because you didn't know it was coming, right?
Yeah, no, it was.
So
like,
what was it like when you see it?
It's like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe this, and it's amazing.
And how did
like,
they find us?
Yeah, and what's next?
Yeah.
And that's another thing. So,
Yeah.
so since then, it's just been very busy, and we've had to kind of change a lot of systems in the kitchen and the front of the house. We've hired a couple people like right away, and we're just trying to grow up to it like as fast as we can.
Is it all good, or do you say some days I liked it the old way? You know, it's steady building, but not an explosion.
Yeah, it's difficult. It would have been nicer if like there was more of like a smooth transition to it rather than like just up to here and we have to catch up. So it's been difficult on the staff, but everybody's been like really good with working with us and just, growing to it.
Yeah, we have an exceptional team, so we're pretty lucky.
We're talking with Lauren Friel and Andrew Brady, the owners and operators of Dear Annie, little seafood wine bar in Cambridge that's gotten massive amount of kudos over the last month. Do you know how this happened? Was there someone you may remember now that may have been a sneaky New York Times food critic that was there, or did it just kind of, you have no idea?
We have no idea.
Which is kind of weird, too, when you think about it, right?
Yeah, we have no idea. It's funny. We've both worked in the Boston restaurant industry for over a decade and plus. And usually we know, we kind of know the food writers. We know the media people are coming in. We had absolutely no warning. We did not know. It was like woke up one day and life was different.
Wow.
So,
Weren't you an Oleana Sarma?
I am an Oleana Sarma alum,
Two of the great restaurants in the history of the world
Absolutely.
in Somerville and Cambridge. So let's get with it here.
All right.
I mean, you two. Can you tell me, what is the food, Andrew, that you're about to pass in my direction?
So we have a section of our menu that we call non-tin fish, which is like...
Non-tin fish.
Non-tin fish.
Okay.
So we take like inspiration from the tin fish style and we make them in-house. So this is a smoked bluefish. So we cure it overnight and then we smoke it for about 45 minutes to an hour. And then we pack them into olive oil with like some seasoning, some lemon zest, some garlic, and then top it with pickled mustard seeds.
Gorgeous.
And then we serve all of the non-tin fish with pickles, an herb salad, and some house-made bread.
Okay, I'm going to try some of this. You want to talk to Marjorie while I'm doing this, or what?
Yeah,
well,
dig in.
you can talk to me about this. I often wonder how you guys got into this. I mean, did you decide in high school that you really like to make scrambled eggs and went and studied culinary? I mean, how did it happen? Start with you, Andrew.
I did love to make scrambled eggs in high school, but I actually have a background in music, so I...
Oh, really?
Yes.
What kind of music?
I've played all sorts of stuff. Actually, I went to Berkeley and graduated, moved to New York to pursue my musical career. It was difficult, so to find work, I ended up catering, working in restaurants, stuff like that, fell in love with food, and then at a certain point, just kind of switched my focus.
Okay.
So I still play music, I still love music, but I decided I wanted to just work in kitchens and have
And
that
you
be
look
my
pretty
career.
young still, so how...
Thank you.
You're welcome. So how long did it take you to get into your own restaurant, which you've had for a while now?
From the time I started cooking, probably like around 10 years.
That's not bad.
Yeah, not bad. Yeah, I was a little older when I started in the kitchen, and I had, during my music days towards the end, I read a lot about food, and I really tried to educate myself so much. So when I started, I kind of had a leg up on a lot of other people that were just starting out, and just managed to excel quickly.
Now, before you explain the wine thing, I would just have, this is I'm a person who moderates my speech. This is one of the best things I've ever eaten in my life. It is unbelievable. unbelievably great. It is. What is it again? Say one more time.
Smoked bluefish with pickled mustard seeds.
Jesus,
Yeah,
it
that
is
means something coming
incredible.
from him, because I think Jim would credit himself as going to all the finest restaurants in Boston.
No, I don't go
and
to all the
the
finest
tasting
restaurants.
menus, and he's really, no, you do,
I eat out a lot.
you do appreciate food. I'm a very boring person. I like, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, so
That's okay.
I don't have the kind of refined palate, but I do like wine.
So explain how you got your start, and then tell us about the wine.
Sure, yeah. Not dissimilar from Andrew. I came to Boston for school, for college. I did not graduate, I dropped out. And I ended up waiting tables to make a living. And ended up actually, I think when I really kind of caught the culinary bug or the food bug was I was working at Savinore's, the butcher store in Cambridge.
Yes.
Julia Child used to shop there. There was just a lot of history there, and ended up dating the head butcher, which is another story for another day. But just
how about for this day?
Yeah. But he
the
took
head
me. Yeah.
butcher.
Yeah.
You gotta be careful.
Quite
dating
a
the
story.
Head butcher.
Yeah, exactly. But he ended up
texted me
taking
2
me
weeks
to.
ago.
Yeah.
Taking
get a
you
recipe.
along.
Oh yeah, he worked for Andrew. I forgot.
Yeah, we worked together for a little bit later.
Wait,
I
where did he
forgot.
take
Much
you?
later.
He took me to a lot of the better restaurants in Boston,
okay.
including Oleana.
Oh.
And he took me to Oleana. That was really the first eye-opening meal for me. I applied for a job there not long after, again waiting tables, and kind of really got exposure to so many things that I never had been exposed to before in terms of food and wine and dining, and a real education that hadn't been even anything I knew was possible. I just fell in love.
Okay, so what
Yeah.
do you bring here? We'll take a small sip.
Sure.
because it
A
is the
small
morning.
sip.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to start with one of my favorite wines from one of my favorite winemakers. This is Margins. The winemaker here, her name is Megan Bell.
Thank you.
She's a really, really young winemaker out in Northern California in Clarksburg.
Supposed to twirl it, Jim. Isn't that what we
Yeah,
learned?
you can swirl it if you want. You certainly don't have to.
You did a wine tasting. They taught us. You're supposed to swirl it around, sniff it. I'm swirling.
Swirl, swirl, swirl. That is, so it's 100% Chenin Blanc. Which is not a grape that we typically think of when we think about California wine. Usually people think Chardonnay when it's a white wine, Pinot Noir, Cabernet. But what's cool about Megan, what's cool about a lot of younger winemakers that are kind of coming out of the California wine scene is that they're, you're like, it's good, right?
It's delicious.
They're buying grapes that are kind of less popular, both for financial reasons and to kind of show a wider range of California wine. Megan is, I think, one of the most talented winemakers out in California right now. I'm really excited about her wines. This one is her skin fermented wine, so orange wines are so hot right now. I'm sure you've heard of them. Orange wines are a very traditional way of making wine. It's basically white wine made like a red wine, where they let the grapes macerate with the juices for a little bit longer. But the cool thing about this one is that it's what I call like a little baby orange wine. So it's a nice like entry-level orange.
Hey,
it's
Lauren, we're
delicious.
talking to Lauren Friel and Andrew Brady, who were 2 of the 3 owners of Dear Annie, this wildly celebrated joint seafood and wine bar in North Cambridge. I just realized when you're mentioning the name of the wine maker, grower, whatever it was, my daughter hangs out at your Rebel a lot, and I think she told me, you're almost all women winemakers. Am I right about that, or am I
We have a lot of women identifying winemakers. Yeah, we are not an exclusively woman winemaker wine bar. I did write an all woman wine list for Dirt Candy in New York City when I was consulting for their program. But Rebel, we have an expansive,
And at the restaurant, I think it was in Deborah First's piece, raving in the Globe, raving about you guys too. She sort of seemed to want to take credit, I think, in her second piece for the New York Times finding you. Maybe that is how they found you. Who knows?
Yeah,
but in any
it's
case,
possible.
she said, I don't know if it's still the case in her original piece, that when you get your food, you then walk up to a counter and talk to a coworker of yours, maybe you, about what wine best works with. Is that right?
Yeah.
I love that.
That's a great
It
idea.
is great,
Yeah. We have a counter service model or a bar service model. So you order everything at the bar with us. We like it because we can pull out a bunch of different wines and taste you on all of them. So you're not saying like, oh, you're not sitting at your table and ordering a glass of the Chardonnay and getting it and being like, I don't really love this. You can come up, you can taste a bunch of different things. We can talk to you about, what you're having next, what the food is that you have coming out, and really it's a pairing and experience without it being a fussy kind of table side thing. It's a little more informal.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Is that new? Or
It is. I think we invented it. I don't know.
That's great. No, because really, you're very confused all the time. Or because if you don't know anything about wine,
Sure.
peanut butter sandwiches, you don't know anything about wine. you never know what to get, and I would love that.
Yeah.
Andrew, we had the woman whose name, of course, I forget, who's the local woman who's one of the stars of The Bear. And for those who've seen it, which is virtually everybody, it talks about the chaos and pressure and whatever in a restaurant, and fairly small restaurant. Yours is a fairly small restaurant. How intense is doing this, particularly when the clientele builds, as you said, overnight?
I mean, it gets intense, but we try to really respect each other's space, and there's the kitchens I run, there's no yelling.
You're not screaming at anybody?
No screaming. Yeah, none
Never.
of that.
No.
I've been in kitchens like that, and I have no interest in that. I think it just hurts things.
Yeah.
But we just have to keep moving quickly and just stay organized and just kind of be ready.
We only have a couple minutes left. Is it horrible if I pour this wine
Absolutely
out so
not.
that I can try the other one?
No, I want you to try both of them.
Okay, and why don't you take, this is really selfish.
I'll pour it out over here.
Why don't you take reservations?
Well, we want people to be able to walk in and not have to worry about a reservation. That was the original kind of plan. We wanted it to feel like a neighborhood spot you could pop into that was casual, that wasn't something you necessarily had to plan for or fuss over. It just kind of lends itself to more of that casual intimacy than a strict reservation system. We also want people to be able to hang out, and I feel like when you have a reservation, there's that pressure of we have, when's our next party coming in? We got to get this table up. Yeah.
And if you want to come in for just one glass quickly,
you can come in for a glass. Yeah.
This is we only have a minute. This is insane.
Yeah.
I don't even like wine. What is this? What is
so
this
I picked this one is a little bit of a wild one, which is why I picked it. So this is from Iole Rabasco. She's one of my favorite winemakers. She's also a dear friend of ours in Abruzzo in Italy. It's 100% Montepulciano. We work with natural wines, which are basically wines that they're wild fermented. They're no preservatives, no additives. The agricultural processes are very sustainable for the same reasons that we care about pescatarian food and local vegetables. We care about how our wines are made. Wine often gets left out of that sustainability conversation. But this is a really beautiful kind of taverna-style wine that I love. It's her Cancelli Rosato. I love this for a shoulder season wine. It's that
What's shoulder season?
shoulder season, like a fall wine.
Oh, okay.
Where maybe you're not ready to let go. Today's nice, it's sunny. I would like a rosé, but I also want something a little bit heartier.
I'm not ready. I'm with you.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. This is
I'm not
perfect.
ready. Yeah, but it's wild. It's rustic, right? What are you smelling? Tell me.
By the way,
yeah.
if the wine and the food that you brought and your pitch are any indication of what this joint is like, it must be.
Well, we gotta see you there.
Jim.
We're
I'll
gonna
take
be
your
there.
number.
You're already there.
Give me your number. We'll get you.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Thank
Not
you so
supposed to say
much.
that
It was
in the
so
air.
fun to
Thank you.
talk to you. And
Really good job.
congratulations
Thanks
on
so
all
much.
your great success. I figured a couple of years, maybe you'd be in there, Jim. You know what I mean? A couple of years.
I'm going to stand in
We'll
line
get you.
starting tonight. Actually. Marjorie's not a huge fish person. This is spectacular.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I mean,
Thank you
just
so much.
spectacular. Thank you so much.
We'll see you
Lauren
there.
Friel, Andrew Brady, the owners and
Wow.
operators of Dear Annie in Cambridge, which, as you said, has just gotten 1 million awards, one of the best 50 restaurants in the entire country, according to the New York Times. Coming up, GBH's Callie Crossley joins us with a breakdown of exactly how much it's going to cost you to get some peace and quiet on the next flight. She's also on top of, this is very important, the latest new Oreo flavor of cookies heading into the holiday season. Callie Crossley is next. You're listening to 89.7 GBH, Boston Public Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Libraries. We do every Tuesday and Friday and streaming live on youtube.com/GBH News.
It's
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Babson College. You can explore graduate programs at the #1 school for entrepreneurship ranked by U.S. News & World Report. Hosting a virtual open house on October 6th and 7th. babson.edu/grad-open-house. Campaign season is heating up, and so are dynamic discussions on what's happening around Boston City Hall, Beacon Hill, and beyond. Join host Adam Riley for Talking Politics tonight at 7 on GBH2.
trusted, local news. This is 89.7 WGBH, WGBH HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. Boston's local NPR.
Ahead on Boston Public Radio, Lizzo plays a slaver's flute, and the internet goes wild. Media maven Sue O'Connell joins us to discuss the hype over the pop star making history playing James Madison crystal flute straight out of the Library of Congress's archives. Then GBH Arts reporter James Bennett II writes of Carly Rae Jepsen's music for the burdened adult. He'll join us to discuss whatever that means, and the departure of Trevor Noah. We know what that means.
It's Live Music Friday with a legendary Boston establishment that's just reopened. Frank Poindexter, Noah Preminger, and Kevin Harris join us to celebrate the reopening of Wally's Jazz Club with conversation and music from Noah and Kevin's band, Sphere 427. Then we'll hear from you about whether it's really the year of the voice message. Are texts out, making way for the sound of your own voice again? Or are you a stubborn texting holdout? All that ahead, Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. South Carolina is bracing for Hurricane Ian. Forecasters saying it's a Category 1 storm. The timing of its arrival today could make for an extremely dangerous storm surge. South Carolina Public Radio's Victoria Hansen reports.
The wind and rain are already beginning to pick up here in Charleston, and there's a flash flood warning in effect for much of the area. Right now, Ian is expected to make landfall anywhere between Charleston and Myrtle Beach sometime this afternoon. Officials worry intense rain and a storm surge could collide with high tide, causing the Charleston Harbor to breach its seawall. A state of emergency is in place, with flooding a major concern. For NPR News, I'm Victoria Hansen in Charleston, South Carolina.
The full scope of Hurricane Ian's impact on Florida this week's far from clear. Nearly 2 million people without electricity. Sid Cleaves was going to ride out the storm on his sailboat in Fort Myers, but decided to get to a shelter, and he was one of the lucky ones.
A lot of tragedy. A lot of these people stayed at the second floor, and we watched it all. An event happened that we couldn't stop. Sure. We couldn't stop it. We couldn't prevent it. We couldn't do anything about it. We just watched our boats get destroyed.
The death toll in that state is still uncertain. Authorities say the combined number of confirmed as well as unconfirmed deaths from the hurricane was more than 20. Ukrainian officials are reporting a Russian missile attack on a humanitarian aid convoy that killed at least 25 people in Zaporizhia, one of the regions Russia has just annexed. NPR's Jason Beaubien says other cities in the south of the country were hit by Russian missiles and drones overnight, including the port city of Odessa.
As Russia moves to annex the occupied Ukrainian region of Kherson, it's increasing aerial strikes from Kherson on neighboring parts of Ukraine. Local officials here say 3 suicide drones were shot down overnight as they approached Odessa. 2 others crashed into Mykolaiv. A drone hit Mykolaiv just hours after a missile struck an apartment building, causing a major fire, and a cluster bomb ripped through a bus stop, leaving several people dead. The Ukrainian military in recent weeks has pushed the front line with Russian forces back about 10 miles deeper into Kherson. These strikes come after what had been a relative lull in Russian attacks on this part of the country. Jason Beaubien, NPR News, Mykolaiv, Ukraine.
Russia against formally annexed 4 Ukrainian regions it mostly occupies in the east of the country. In a televised ceremony at the Kremlin today, President Vladimir Putin signed a law that folds Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia into the Russian Federation. Ukraine and the West recognize none of it. The Allies accuse Russia of attempting to legitimize its actions by directing proxies in the regions to force votes for annexation. This is NPR News.
And good afternoon from the GBH Radio Newsroom in Boston. I'm Craig Lamolt. A controversial drug from a Cambridge-based company has received approval from the Food and Drug Administration to help treat the neurodegenerative disease ALS. GBH Radio's Esteban Bustillos has more.
The FDA announced that Relivrio, which is produced by Amylyx Pharmaceuticals, will now be another treatment option for the disease, which currently has no cure. Brian Frederick with the ALS Association says that research for the drug was funded in part by the Ice Bucket Challenge, which was inspired partly by former Boston College baseball player Pete Frates, who died from ALS in 2019.
This is a tribute to the legacy of Pete Frates and Pat Quinn, who popularized the Ice Bucket Challenge.
Although there are still questions about the drug's efficacy, Frederick says his organization believes there's enough compelling data for people with ALS to take it in order to slow down progression of the disease. Esteban Bustillos, GBH, Boston's local NPR.
The new red and orange line cars the MBTA is having built won't be here for months. That's according to information provided at the T's board meeting on Thursday. Although the first new orange line cars have arrived, the remaining 76 cars won't be here until next year. With completion of some 250 new red line cars won't happen until 2025. All told, the order is over 20 months behind schedule, which left board member Mary Beth Mello frustrated.
Clearly, we can't go on like this. We desperately need cars. So I just want to be certain that you're working, looking at strategies, looking at some bold solutions.
Deputy GM Jeff Gonneville said the contract with the Chinese manufacturer is being reviewed, and he's looking at how production can be accelerated. This is GBH.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance, where drivers can compare direct rates using Progressive's rate comparison tool at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations.
The Eastern Brownie, I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live, as we do every Tuesday and every Friday, from the Boston Public Library, and we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Would it be inappropriate, Marjorie, that we can't demand it, that we ask every guest on the show to bring food and wine for the, just as an opener,
well,
to sort of break the ice kind of thing?
It is very nice. I mean,
Wow.
the wine was extraordinary, and I'm not a fish person, but you said the fish was the best.
Well, you know
you
who
ever
would
had.
have loved both these things? Who is on Zoom today? We'll tell you why she's not here in person in a minute. That'd be GBH's Callie Crossley. Callie is the host of Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, which you can catch Sunday nights right here on 89.7 at 6. Also the host of Basic Black, which airs Fridays at 7:30, obviously on Channel 2. You can also hear Callie commentaries on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. Hey there, we miss you, Callie Crossley.
Oh my God, you're killing me with the Chenin Blanc. I love it.
Well, you cannot imagine how good everything was.
You know what? I took a picture of it. I'll text it to you. So
oh, yeah, because I'd love to know. Yeah.
Why are you not here,
What a
Callie?
good match for that fish. You're killing me.
Why are you not here?
I am not here because I'm a statistic, which I'll be articulating more about on my Monday commentary. I got COVID last week, didn't recognize it because I've managed not to get it since 2020. I'm one of those. And now I've just, there you have it.
How are you feeling?
Well, I feel fine now. Now I'm at the point where I'm frustrated because I can't get out of this house because I keep testing positive, but I have no symptoms and I can't get rid of this lingering cough. It's just, and it's not even like it used to. I mean, it was waking me up in the middle of this. So now it's just every now and then. So my doctor says this is not unusual, blah, 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 blah. So you just have to ride it out,
Yeah.
I'm not contagious, she says, but.
So
but,
being boosted and vaxxed and all that stuff, you had a bad cough but
Yeah,
nothing,
I mean,
nothing horrible.
No, I mean,
Good.
I had, I didn't recognize it because it felt like a bad cold.
Yeah.
And then as it was accelerating, finally somebody said to me, why don't you, I was at work actually, and I said, have you taken a COVID test? And I was like, oh. And, as I've described it to friends, the lines couldn't wait to jump up. They were like, boom, really bright pink. I thought, oh my God. So then I got the temperatures, the headaches, the racking coughs. It wasn't great. But, without all of the medicine, I'd have been in the hospital because,
and for people who are not worried about this anymore, that think Callie's an outlier, and maybe she is, wastewater numbers are up in Massachusetts, which we know is the best predictor of what's to come. And while all the experts say because of the level of immunity, either natural because we've had it, or vaccine, the numbers are going to be down. They also say in a footnote, if there's a new variant, the fall could be miserable. So please take, I usually don't like, please take care, everybody, is the bottom line. Get vaccinated, get boosted, whatever it is, the booster, the third booster is available.
Yes,
now,
and that's the one I hadn't had yet, Jim. So I thought the last one, the latest one, that's the only one I hadn't had because I thought, it's the timing thing. So I'll wait closer to the holidays when I know I'll be interacting with a whole bunch of people. That turned out not to be wise because this Omicron is very contagious.
Callie, we're thinking about you and we miss you today. We're talking to Callie Crossley.
So, Callie, we were talking with our listeners earlier about watching all the horrific images from Florida and now moving up the coast from Hurricane Ian. But there's a fear, a well-founded fear, I think, that Puerto Rico, which has endured several hurricanes, is going to get lost in the shuffle.
Oh, for sure. Not get lost, it has gotten lost. I think the one thing that you can point out is that President Biden was sort of upfront saying, okay, for 30 days, we're going to make sure you get the support from FEMA and all of that. But, FEMA is one department. It's got its folks are somewhat divided between all of the catastrophes that have happened recently. So Puerto Rico being one, and now Florida. And the Puerto Ricans are right to worry that, we're always last on the list. And if Florida has been hit as hard as it had, because they were expressing concerns before Ian hit, we're never going to get that kind of attention from FEMA because FEMA's going to be spending a lot of more time probably in Florida. And nobody's taking away the fact that Florida got hit badly. That's not the issue. The issue is that 5 years ago, after Maria, there were supposed to be certain changes put in place so that the island could withstand at least better than it had this go around getting hit again. And that just had not, all of those changes were not in place. Some were, but not all of them. There's also the matter of this act that makes it's so convoluted that makes it impossible for mainland United States, because they are part of the United States, to deliver goods there. It's a whole
The Jones Act, it's called.
Yes. Yeah. So that's, lots of folks have said, please get rid of this and let's get on with it. And we can really be, helped more directly. But there we are. So for a lot of very rational reasons, they're right to be concerned that they might be forgotten again. And then here we will be with another hit. One of the things that you discussed in your opening conversation was that, what'd you say, there were 4 already Category 4 hurricanes?
Yeah, the last decade.
Right. So it's not that they're not coming again. You have to be prepared, right?
The other night on television, I had Mayor Cruz, who I think she's now in Mount Holyoke, but she was the mayor of San Juan during Maria. Right. And she was, I thought, incredibly courageous, both literally wading in the high waters to help rescue her people. And she had the courage to take on the really callous attitude of the then President Donald Trump, who I think it's fair to say had no, and I don't mean this facetiously, had no idea, based on what he said, that the people of Puerto Rico were citizens of the United States. If you go back and look at his actual quotes, he had no idea. And one of the interesting things she told me, Callie, that I didn't know about, is ultimately, while Trump was still president, $9 billion was appropriated by Congress and signed by Trump to rebuild the electrical infrastructure. This is 4 years ago. And if I remember the number correctly, and if I'm off, I'm only off by a little, of the $9 billion, $40 million has been spent so far in the intervening X number of years, meaning virtually nothing. She says in part, the United States government is to blame, in part, her position is the Puerto Rican government is to blame. But to say that they are considered second and third class citizens of the United States, I think, frankly, is an understatement. So hopefully people will pay attention.
One last thing. We were talking about how much people are worried about the places where they've, if not lived at, vacationed at for years. And I know you're a big Martha's Vineyard fan. You can't help thinking when you see Ian that the peril of an island in the Atlantic. I mean,
well, I don't know if you guys remember, not this past summer, this immediate past summer, but last summer, we were supposed to experience a really bad tropical storm, and I was on the island. And, you don't know what to do except go get water and all the kind of stuff you're supposed to do and hunker down, because as it turned out, I had waited too late, or maybe I tried and couldn't get any transportation off the island to get away from it. So there I was. So I've had enough of a taste, and it passed us, as it turned out. So the next day was all sunny, like nothing had happened. But that was scary.
Yeah.
So these are not... I don't think anybody can afford to say it won't hit them. And to your earlier point about inland cities and towns, I mean, climate change is climate change, and it's going to make its way to all of those towns as well. Maybe not be hit as badly.
Different forms, right? You're right.
Right. You're not going to be. You're not going to escape. So it's not about. Even if you don't agree with it, some things have to be put in place. For example, I was wondering, and looking at the horrific pictures from Florida, some buildings are still standing. I'm going to assume that they have whatever the hurricane standard building is, because that's 100 and some degree wind.
Yeah.
So what is it that they did that prepared them to withstand that? And it's expensive, of course, but I think we have to start thinking about all those things in the way that we build. And this is stuff that I'm not saying anything new. People have been saying this for years, but how much more evidence do we need that it has to happen?
Callie Crossley, I didn't even know there was something called an investiture for new justices to the Supreme Court. But before we went on the air this morning, Marjorie and I watched the newest Associate Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, walk down the steps of the Supreme Court with the Chief Justice, John Roberts. And I turned to Marjorie and I said, if there was a thought bubble above Brown Jackson's head, it would say, what did I get myself into? So first describe this investiture thing, and then I want to talk for a minute about what it's like to take a new job when it's possible, if not likely, that you're going to be in the minority position for your whole career in that job. So what is this investiture deal?
Well, it's a formal bringing her. It's a formal onboarding, if you will, onto the Supreme Court. But it has all kinds of historic language and formality to it. In fact, she became a justice the minute that Justice Stephen Breyer stepped down. So this really is just a formal part of it. And, it's like the biggest HR day you're going to have. She'll have coming in with getting all the officialness attached to it. And it was historic for any number of reasons, but certainly because of who she was and the fact that this is a Democratic appointed justice and hadn't been one of those in a while. So the Democrats themselves were very interested in it, plus a lot of other folks who have just long been her supporters. Okay. Now, what about going somewhere where you're going to be in the minority? I'm going to say that's not unfamiliar to her. Let's start there. For probably most of her career, she's been in a position, if not, I don't know that she's necessarily been ideologically in opposition to whomever she's next to, but by virtue of being a Black woman in a pretty overwhelmingly white stratosphere where she lives, where she has worked, she's been, one of and had to navigate that. So that's a lot of that's not unfamiliar. What I would say that might be, because as we learned through her hearings, even people who disagreed with her fundamentally thought highly of her, were respectful, blah, blah, blah. I don't know that she's been in a situation like this at this level with this much intensity where people are disagree with you and they're not, respectful or constructive, because that's what we're getting on the outside right now. Maybe that's not what's happening behind closed doors, but it feels like that to the rest of us looking on the outside. That part I'm not sure about. But if we know anything from her, the way she comported herself during the hearings, she will make it happen.
Well, I wonder whether this may be a naive, ridiculous question from me, but I'll ask it anyway.
Good.
She is a Black woman. She's not close at all to the other Black guy on the court, Clarence Thomas, who I think in some cases has left planet Earth. I mean, I'm wondering if and she's a respected jurist, obviously a serious person. is her presence there going to impact her perspective, going to impact any of these people? Not him, because I think he's gone, but some of the other justices.
Like
because
who?
I don't know.
Who was open-minded in
know.
that 5? Forget Roberts.
Maybe Kavanaugh, maybe Coney Barrett.
Well,
I don't know.
I haven't, that was my little cling on to hope kind of thing. I must have said that to a couple of friends of mine who are, in the business of lawyering and, judging and all of that. And I thought to myself, I don't care what you say, that if you're in a closed, intimate circumstance where everybody's vote is equal in that situation, if you can make a cogent argument and respectfully, people may still not agree with you, but they can listen. And that may make a difference in how something ends up. I don't know. And sometimes it can be persuasive enough to change people. I've been, you guys probably have had this experience, but I've been on so many boards and committees. I'm recalling one, the DuPont Columbia Award. You may be aware of that. It's a very prestigious award for broadcast journalists. And because there's only 12 of them, and we only do 13 if, I'm saying we, like I'm still on it, but you get my drift, in special circumstances. So there we are, and we're down to, and it pretty much has to be a unanimous vote of the 9 jurors. I was one of the 9, and we're down to it, and we had eliminated the one film that I really thought should get it. And I just came back and said, I got one more thing to say. And everybody groaned like, okay, please, God. And I gave it my all. I did my, in the jury room. And one of my fellow jurors said, all right, changing my mind. And they got it.
Really?
So you just do not know. You just don't know. I mean, I think if you're passionate about your position and you're cogent and you're constructive and you feel like you can say it again, within the context and the confines of of how the process is, you can sometimes change minds. He said, oh my God, I'm changing my mind. Okay.
Well, can I use, since we're talking about whether Ketanji Brown Jackson can do it at the Supreme Court, can I use a legal term that maybe neither of you know, but I'll use it anyway? Dream on, Callie Crossley.
I don't know.
Are you kidding?
I don't know.
Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, Coney Barrett, Alito, and Thomas. I hope you're right.
You're probably right.
I hope you're right.
Well, we're trying to keep hope alive here, Jim.
Okay, fine.
Because it's
okay.
Yeah, it's not really. There's not really a lot of hopefulness in a lot of the news. So we're trying to.
Well, yes, there is. There is. Okay. Because you now, for $60 on certain airlines, can buy the seat next to you. It's called Neighbor Free on Qantas Airline. You can buy a whole row on some airline, Fiji Airlines, called My Island. And you know what the incredible, by the way, who doesn't hate sitting next to somebody they don't know on a plane? That's one. 2, the incredible thing, I thought when I read the story, Callie Crossley, it would mean if your ticket's, I don't know, $412, you can obviously buy the seat next to you for $412.
No.
That's not the case at all. It's like $60, $70. It's like, come on down, no?
I think it's incredible. And when I first read the story, I thought of you. It should be renamed the Gym Free.
No, I am so with you.
Yeah, why are they doing this though? This is going to cost some money, right?
Well, I'm assuming it's only on flights where they're below capacity. Isn't that probably?
It's
so it's better to make 6. What's that?
Yeah. Well, so I would think 2 things. First of all, maybe you have it's a frequent flyer perk. Like you
maybe it is. That's a good point.
Maybe you give some extra, make it possible on flights when it's not underfilled, just because you want to give a little something to one of your frequent flyers. I think they have a lot of room to decide what they're going to do. But all of the airlines I thought was interesting because I didn't see an American airline in this list.
I don't think there is.
Are already known pretty much for good service. So this to me seems like that's part and parcel of there. Let me figure out something else. And this is an easy way to clock up some money and give good service to folks and get a reputation.
No, that's great. And by the way, the thing that Callie was talking about, we don't have time to retell the stories today. I've had some unfortunate experiences with people sitting near me on airlines.
The federal marshals almost had to pick Jim up on the tarmac in a couple of instances. So I guess the question is at this juncture, do we want to talk about cannibalism or do we want to talk about the new Oreo cookie, Jim?
I would go for the Oreo cookie.
Okay. I don't know why we have to mess with perfection here, but apparently in honor of Christmas time, Oreo cookie is going to release a new flavor, Snickerdoodle in advance of the Christmas season.
Yeah,
Am I supposed
and
to be
early too. Like
Yeah.
everybody's jumping the season. First of all, I don't get it either. Maybe because I'm not a snickerdoodle person. So I mean, it's not that I hate snickerdoodles, but they don't inspire me to get something.
Yeah.
But I guess Oreo thinks it will. And again, this is another one of those jump in the season things. They want to put their thing out here early, and so they can let you know they're going to start selling them early, so they'll get you in the holiday spirit earlier.
Aren't you? Didn't we have a discussion about Oreos and breaking them up with you a couple of months? You're an Oreo person,
Yeah,
are you not?
yeah.
Yeah, they don't do much for
I'm
me.
an Oreo person. I am an Oreo person. I kind of like except for the thin ones, those are fun. And then I think the mint ones I enjoy. But
Double
some of the
stuff.
other
Double
flavors-
stuff?
No.
Double stuff are good.
I love double stuff. That's my favorite. Double stuff. Yeah, they're really
But
great.
my thing is, why you? I don't know. What do you people feel about Snickerdoodle? Does that inspire you to run
No,
and buy a new-
no. I
okay.
think that they have a perfect cookie in the Oreo double stuff
Wow.
and leave it alone.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I don't like all this stuff.
First of
that
all,
they
what
do.
is Snickerdoodle?
It's you explain, Callie. Cinnamon
Do you know-
flavored.
No, because it's kind of. I'm terrible about it. It's kind of.
Okay, cinnamon flavored, be speckled
Yeah.
with green and red sugar crystals within its creamy center.
I
I don't
like
know
cinnamon.
that. Cinnamon flavored. Please.
No, I thought you meant what is a Snickerdoodle? Period. I knew what the cookie.
What is a
yeah.
Snickerdoodle?
Well, it has some of those.
Sue
flavors.
O'Connell's laughing at me. Who knows what a Snickerdoodle is? Do you? What is it? Callie, what's a Snickerdoodle?
Oh, I'm saying it has some of the flavors of the cinnamon and the, that kind of, so that, it's one of those things I can take or leave. I like cinnamon and I like the Snickerdoodle cookie because there have been some other cookies.
Yeah.
And the candy, it doesn't inspire me to buy it, but it's, I've had it. It's nice. It's not offensive.
It's kind of like the dreaded pumpkin spice to me.
Is it really?
The pumpkins. Well, no, it doesn't taste like it. It doesn't taste like it.
Spice.
But it's just
Yeah.
this thing. We have to have pumpkin spice now because it's Halloween. I don't know. Do you like pumpkin spice lattes?
No.
Let's not
I
start
write
talking.
about it all the time.
I don't want to talk
No.
about that. But before you go, in light of the fact that we're talking about something that some people like to eat, let's talk about Jeffrey Dahmer for a minute. In a
geez.
related thing, I am embarrassed to say that I watched the final episode last night because my older daughter
That's
was
right.
watching it, and she was sitting on my couch, and she wouldn't let me switch to CNN.
Family viewing.
And it is brutal. I mean, by the way, it's the #1 show on Netflix. It is brutal. And what I read this morning, which I wasn't sure was a joke, a number of the victims of Jeffrey Dahmer, and I don't know if people know because it was a while ago, from the late 70s to I think 91, there were 17 victims. I know it's lunchtime, but I'll say it quickly. He ate a number of the victims after
Correct.
he killed them. And a decent number of his victims were young gay men. And the thing that was unbelievable to me, they'd list it as an LGBTQ film on their damn website. I mean, really?
Yeah. And people lost their minds. They've since removed it for
Oh,
good
they have?
reason.
Oh.
Yeah. No, people lost their minds. No. But, however, it is still #1 or close to it in terms of, what people are viewing on Netflix. I couldn't go anywhere near that.
So explain to me that before you go, that's really what I should have asked you at first. It's the #1 viewed show on Netflix. Not only, at least the episode I saw, is it not terribly well made, but it really is.
Totally what it is.
It's gross. What is the allure? Why are so many people interested? Now, of course, I love Silence of the Lambs, but of course, two great actors. But why are people so drawn to this?
I think because it's as horrific as it is. I liken it to the fact that horror films, fictional horror films, are at their peak
Yeah.
and have been for the last couple of years. So there's that level of horror, but it's real life, and this is really horrific. So I think a lot of people are drawn to that. I also think that some people disassociate real life, even as presented
you're right.
in this film, and being told that this is real life and these are real victims and blah, blah, blah. They're used to looking at some of this gross, horrible stuff, and that's interesting. Then, of course, the other issue for some people is that there's a big draw to true crime of all
That's true,
sorts.
too, yeah.
And so the level of grossness
Yeah.
is not something that turns people off because they like true crime in and of itself. But certainly, many, many people pushed back against the labeling of the film.
Yeah.
And his victims were gay and black and brown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Callie Crossley, you well enough to be doing a show this weekend or no?
Yes, I have recorded in my closet many times over the last few days. It's been a delight.
What are you doing?
We are doing our Latinx. Our whole show is in celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month, acknowledgement of that. So our first long piece is we're talking about some of the issues we've discussed here. First of all, the Puerto Rican impact, the impact of Ian on Puerto Rico and what's going on there. And my guests have a lot of really insightful things to say about that. We're really looking at the rise of Latino political power in Massachusetts. And also, both of my guests really weigh in a very emotional way about embracing Hispanic Heritage Month. And in the last half of the show, we're interviewing Erica Sanchez, continuing our theme, whose book is called Crying in the Bathroom, and she's a very proud Mexican-American author, poet, and essayist, and her book has gotten quite a bit of acclaim. So
Fabulous.
That's the show.
Feel better. We'll be listening. See you soon, Callie. We miss you.
Thanks,
Thank
Callie.
you so much.
Thanks, Callie.
Bye.
Bye.
So I got a lot of text messages about the wines, the names of the wines. So if you have your pencil.
Oh, they left them.
Yeah, they did leave them.
Love
So
that.
if you have your pencil ready, or I'm also thinking if I can put them on here and people can take pictures of them.
Oh,
I
I
don't know
love
if that's
that.
going to work. But in any case, if not, I will give the names when we get back with our media maven, Sue O'Connell. We've been speaking with Callie Crossley, host of Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, which you can catch Sunday nights right here on 89.7 at 6. She's also the host of Basic Black. You just heard her describe what's on this Sunday. Basic Black, airs Friday. It's at 7:30, and her show Under the Radar is Sunday night. And her Callie commentaries are Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. Okay, after a quick break, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene splits with her husband over an alleged affair with a polyamorous tantric sex guru. Sue O'Connell, media maven, knows polyamorous tantric sex gurus like nobody else, and she's going to explain what's going on there. We're going to talk to our media maven, Sue O'Connell, next. Sue, not Marjorie Taylor Greene, you're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Inflation is on everyone's minds right now, but if you turn to TikTok, you'll find Gen Z is feeling it extra hard.
I would love to achieve my dreams, but the world is gonna melt in a decade and college costs $1 million. So instead of investing in my future, I have decided to just simply vibe.
Hear that story this afternoon on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you and the University of Massachusetts Amherst, united around a vision for public access to revolutionary education. UMass Amherst gives students the opportunity to seek solutions to the challenges of today. Learn more at umass.edu. And CIC Innovation Campus. CIC is working to reimagine the office for the needs of today's workforce. You can schedule a tour of CIC's flexible office spaces at cic.com/enterprise.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We are here with Sue O'Connell, our media maven. Sue O'Connell is a contributor to Current on NBC LX and co-publisher of Bay Windows and South End News. That's okay. You've done it a few times for me, Jim, and I have been in the bathroom or otherwise distracted.
I was otherwise distracted talking to this great band. This
Anyway,
for a little while.
Sue's here to take on the social norms and abnormalities of the day, including Marjorie Taylor Greene. We just talked about her. We're going to talk about her more in a second. And a little action with Ginny Thomas, wife of the Supreme Court Justice Thomas, and New Hampshire's own Cory Lewandowski. So let's start with the tantric sex guru.
I wish you wouldn't bring up my
you-
personal life,
You totally
please.
screwed up. You usually encourage the audience to applaud for you.
Oh, right. I'm sorry.
Sue O'Connell's
I don't have
here.
any cousins here. Do I have
Thank
any
you.
cousins here?
That's very
No
weak,
cousins.
actually.
Oh, wait a
but
minute.
Thank you anyway.
I also promised I would mention the names of the wines.
Yeah, okay. The show's
This
over
is,
at 2
okay,
o'clock.
this is a Clarksbury Chenin Blanc, but the name on the front is Margins, like a margin on your paper.
Okay, fine.
Plural, 2021 Chenin Blanc skin fermented, and the other one
Yeah.
is a Vini, Robasco, Vino, Rosato.
Perfect.
Cancelli, Cancelli. It's got a lot of Italian words underneath that, but that's the best I can do. It's from Abruzzo, Italy.
This is like the auction, the old auction here. So
incredible.
just call in now.
We used to do that. Actually.
Yeah, remember?
Okay, well, nice to see you.
See you later. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Oh,
What's a tantric sex guru, please?
Your Honor, I have no comment. Listen, Marjorie, I
Wait a
am.
second, isn't Sting a tantric sex guru?
Sting, that's right, and his
Sting
wife.
is too, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not here to shame anyone's sexual activities or to put my idea of what a conventional relationship should be or to kink shame anyone. Whatever you
So
want
why
to
are
do.
you here then?
Because Marjorie Taylor Greene is an awful person.
She is.
She doesn't deserve to have as much sex as apparently she is having with Jim people. I mean, her husband has filed for divorce.
Yes.
She, of course, is from Georgia. She's the Republican who, I said this last week, when I am up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I decide I want to doom scroll through Twitter, I follow one guy who does nothing but post her, and it puts me in such a bad mood that I just get up because she's just I keep thinking she's like Andy Kaufman. Remember Andy Kaufman, the comic?
Of course.
Oh, yes.
I think she's him. I think he's
Didn't
come
someone
back.
drop him on his head too?
Yes,
and that
their
was the end of
wrestling thing,
things,
and then
right?
we're not really sure he's dead. We think that
We think he's not dead?
I think it's a performance that he's
Oh.
not dead, and I think
Oh.
he's come back as Marjorie Taylor Greene. Anyway, so her husband is divorcing her after 27 years of marriage.
That's unfortunate.
And
No, it is. I mean, it is. They have 3 grown
It
kids.
is terrible,
and-
yes.
Well, at least they're grown.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
And is citing her relationship, her affair with a gym guy and this tantric sex guy. Now the issue,
Wait a minute, are there 2 guys or are they
Yeah,
one
two
and the
guys.
same?
Two guys.
Two
Oh,
guys.
a gym guy and
the
a tantric.
No,
sex.
excuse me. They're 2 gym guys.
2 gym guys.
The polyamorous tantric sex guy is
Guru,
also a gym
guru.
guy.
He's a guru. Sex guru.
They're 2 separate guys
And then
at
a
the
gym
gym.
manager.
Wow.
Okay, fine.
Hold
And a
on.
gym manager.
So, wow, not just one guy.
No, 2
but
guys.
2 guys.
2 fit guys.
Two
They're both
guys.
clearly
Va, va,
fit.
va.
Not at the
Boom.
same time, by the way.
Well, we
as far
don't
as-
know
that.
that. We don't know
either,
that. And again, good for her.
Yeah.
Right?
No, exactly.
Except
More
she,
power to her.
She is a pro-family,
Oh, she is?
traditional,
Oh, I didn't know that.
right-wing conservative who wants all of you to have your rights taken away. Certainly is against everyone doing the things that she is doing, but of course she's doing them.
That's right.
And she
Okay.
also, she's just horrible to.
Okay, fine.
She's
You
horrible.
said that already. Now, let me
That's
just
a
say
good
this.
point. I mean, is it more upsetting for your religious values to sell a birthday cake to a gay couple or to be having multiple affairs?
She's a little hypocritical.
A little-
Just
what's
a tiny
big
bit.
deal?
Just
Can
a
I
tiny
say,
bit.
we try to mention her every week. And last week when we mentioned her, we mentioned once she criticized Nancy Pelosi and she got her words a little screwed up.
Yeah.
And we didn't have the sound
Oh,
at that
good. We
particular
have the
time.
sound.
Oh,
So we
good,
have
okay.
it.
She's
Here
really
she
smart.
Is.
She's
This
so
is-
smart.
She is.
She's a genius.
And in fairness, this is in February when she's still trying to get over the polyamorous tantric sex guru.
She's tired.
So obviously she's real tired.
Did he break
Yep.
up with her?
Here she is. This is like 10 years ago. Here she is in February trying to criticize House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Listen carefully.
But now we have Nancy Pelosi's gazpacho police spying on members of Congress, spying on the legislative work that we do, spying on our staff, and spying on American citizens that want to come talk to their representatives.
Let me tell you, if Nancy Pelosi had a gazpacho police,
Yeah.
I'd like her even more. Let
Well,
me
that
just
was
be clear.
in the recipes that were in Hillary's emails. That
Exactly.
Podesta had the
Dumb as a post.
yeah, she's just and she's elected. And as I said last week, and I say every time we talk about her, there was a time I thought I wasn't smart enough to be an elected official.
Well, speaking of smart enough, somebody we also talk about all the time, Ginny Thomas.
Oh, boy.
Yesterday, finally does an interview behind closed doors with the January 6th committee. We don't know when the rescheduled hearing is. Obviously, it was supposed to be Wednesday, but because of the storm, it was put off. What did she say, apparently, Sue O'Connell?
Well, Ginny Thomas, who many know is the wife of Justice Clarence Thomas, and Ginny is a conservative activist, to say the least, and she has basically testified that she did indeed send, two reports from the Washington Post, send messages to Mark Meadows, the chief of staff for Donald Trump, saying that the election results were in fact wrong, that the election was stolen, that Trump should not in any way, shape, or form leave the White House, that he should continue on and be president. So basically saying that the election of Joe Biden was a stolen election from Donald Trump. Now, you may think, well, it's okay. We all have personal relationships. So Justice Thomas's wife is a radical conservative activist that certainly must have a firewall between Clarence Thomas and his wife. And indeed, there is no firewall. In fact, I would guarantee that Jim, Marjorie, and myself have to fill out more forms about conflicts of interests. And I know personally I would be fired if I were married to a Supreme Court justice and didn't reveal it to my workplace. But the Supreme Court justices do no such thing. So we have this ethics issue. Ginny Thomas, of course, also said she really believes it. Like, she believes the election was stolen, so she could certainly pass a lie detector test that she thinks it is. And hopefully we'll get a twofer when the hearings are rescheduled. We'll get Roger Stone and we'll get Ginny Thomas.
Well, you just at the end there, when you said she'd pass a lie detector test, addressed something, and Marjorie and I were talking about this morning, which is, I said, a lot of people in politics, like, who's a good example? Marjorie Taylor Greene, Paul Gosar, congresspeople, who are literally have IQs of about 42. When they say the election was stolen, I accept that they believe the election was stolen. Ginny Thomas is really smart. And Marjorie and I were debating, she went behind closed doors to this committee and reaffirmed that she believes the election was stolen. Does somebody with that intellect, even with her politics, believe the election was stolen, or it just fits her desired narrative?
So here's the thing, and I want to say this carefully, because your intelligence does not impact whether or not you join a cult or not. And Ginny Thomas was a member of a cult. She was a member of LifeSpring in the late 1970s and 1980s, and she was part of a documentary where she talked about how terribly this affected her life. And I think that if that happens to you, sometimes you're just more likely later in life to go on and believe. And it's, you can define a cult any way you want, but being part of this, the election was stolen and Joe Biden wasn't the legitimately elected president, certainly for me falls into the cult world.
Well, don't forget, she left a voicemail for Anita Hill.
I know.
Asking Anita Hill to apologize for what she said about her husband. So it doesn't seem like she's, necessarily
well-grounded.
Right.
Well-grounded.
And
but
again, the issue is there's no firewall between her and the Supreme Court. And
which she lied about, I think, for sure.
Oh, certainly. And you know that they've represented their marriage as a partnership in every opportunity that they can. Best friends. So what would John Roberts do as Chief Justice John Roberts?
Marjorie's point every time we talk about
nothing.
He has been the biggest disappointment to me.
Well, what can he do?
He can use his bully pulpit. He can say that the reputation of the Supreme Court has. Listen, he talked endlessly about that leak, didn't he? About
yes,
the Alito
he did.
leak.
You're right.
So if he can talk about the Alito leak with his bully pulpit, he can say the reputation of the Supreme Court has been severely damaged. He should just say, I cannot force him, but Clarence Thomas should not be involved in cases.
I mean, I'd like to see him resign.
I didn't say resign.
No, she said resign.
I said he should not be involved in cases involving the January 6th investigation or election tampering. These cases that his wife is up to her, elbow or eyebrows in.
Well, but by the way, there's another route for people to think he should say those words to Clarence Thomas in private and say, if you don't agree,
maybe he has.
if you don't agree to recuse yourself in any case, unlike what you did when you were the one dissenting vote in terms of releasing documents to the January 6th committee, which, oh my goodness, what a coincidence, including texts from your wife to Mark Meadows. If you don't agree to recuse yourself going forward, I'm publicly going to call you out. And Thomas has to make a decision. And I'm with you. If I hear one more word about Roberts or the integrity or credibility of the court and allows this to happen, it's a disgrace. We're talking to Sue O'Connell. Do we have any other tantric sex stories?
No. Well, apparently we were supposed to talk about Cory Lewandowski with Callie and not with Sue.
Anyway.
Oh, okay, because I'm not prepared for this.
You don't have
to
be.
He apparently has cut a deal on charges stemming from alleged unwanted sexual advances.
Again?
Cory Lewandowski, he was Trump's first campaign manager. And you interviewed him. Didn't you interview him?
Well, one of the great moments, he was very nice to us. This show and the television show went to Washington the week of Trump's inauguration. And my television colleague, Azita, who you know, has a family member who knows Cory Lewandowski. So he's nice enough to invite us to his office. And we're in his office talking. And by the way, he treated us very respectfully and nice. I think he knew our worldview is a little
You
different.
missed his interview with me.
What? I did.
That was not
well, we'll get to that.
respectful
Let me
and
just get
nice.
to this one. I wasn't there that day, was I? Or, no, I
No,
wasn't.
you were not.
Okay, and so he walks us to the window of his office, and on my honor has tears in his eyes, and he points to the White House, and he says, look at the window, I don't know, second floor on the right. And I said, I'm looking. He said, you know what that is? And I said, no. He says, that's President Trump's bedroom. And he literally started weeping that he was able to see the president's bedroom.
So there were previous reports about him involving a baseball bat and one of the neighbors that came to the fore out of New Hampshire. But in this particular case, supposedly he was at this event where he, the wife of an Idaho construction executive, this major GOP donor, John Odom, she's there. And he stalked her, according to witnesses, through the hotel, said she had a nice, other word for butt, threw a drink at her. He's
grabbing her too.
He talked about his genitalia, apparently. He followed her around, touched her about 10 times. After the dinner, she said that Lewandowski followed her, threw a drink at her, called her stupid, told her he was a very powerful person and could destroy anyone. And witnesses said that the woman's name, Treshelle Odom, was in tears.
Well, by the spirit of fairness here, he just cut a deal where he's got to pay a fine and do some community service and some counseling, and there was no admission of guilt. So for whatever it's worth, even though there are witnesses that say this happened, the ultimate resolution was would you have tears in your eyes if you were pointing out Donald Trump's bedroom?
No, I don't know.
You don't think so?
I can definitely say I would not have tears in my eyes.
But he's still working for Republican Democratic.
He's working for Jeff Deal.
He's working for Jeff Deal.
Including Jeff Deal.
Yeah, he was at Jeff Deal's election night party. And I imagine he'll be out on some campaign trail for Jeff Deal as well. I mean, did he not?
Jeff Deal is the Republican nominee for governor here, and I don't mean that facetiously. In light of the fact he doesn't have enough money to be on television, you may not even know. Yeah.
Did he not be accused of assaulting someone at a Trump rally as well?
A reporter.
That was resolved,
putting his hand on
and
the
pushing
arm.
her out of the way when she was standing up. So I mean, what comment can I give on that? Keep your hands to yourself. How about that?
How about that?
Okay, here's another very distressing story. This involves Representative Jackie Walorski. She's a Republican from Indiana. She was killed in a traffic accident just last month. And unfortunately, President Biden was looking for her on Wednesday at an event.
All right.
Well, we have sound. Hold on.
Okay.
We have sound. He is chairing. We had Jim McGovern on during the lunch break. Jim, obviously, Congressman McGovern, is the primary inspiration. He's been working for years to get a White House summit on nutrition and hunger. And he mentioned when we were talking to him that there was bipartisan support. It was not only the deceased Congresswoman Walorski, but also, I think his name is Braun, if I remember correctly, from Indiana, Senator Braun, that sort of thing. And despite that, here is President Biden when he was speaking at the conference.
And I want to thank all of you here for including bipartisan elected officials like Representative Governor, Senator Braun, Senator Booker, Representative Jackie. Are you here? Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here to help make this a reality.
Wow.
You know who's doing a great job?
Who?
Frederick Douglass. Do you remember what Donald? Do you remember what Donald Trump? No,
I do.
So this is what the problem with having a Donald Trump presidency is. That's terrible, right? What Joe Biden said, it's troubling. But compared to the 4 years prior to that, how do you criticize Joe Biden when Donald Trump thought Frederick Douglass was alive and doing a heck of a job? He was doing a great job.
Yeah, but
how do you do
so
that?
Well, Donald Trump was the most dangerous president.
What about Tim Apple?
So, I mean,
what about Tim Apple?
With all due respect, this is almost
Instead of Tim Cook.
I know, but he's not president now, and I agree. There's not an equivalency. However, the current president of the United States did this, which it's a little troubling when he's saying on 60 Minutes a week or so ago, well, he hasn't made up his mind. Right. He's contemplating running for re-election.
He's not contemplating for running for re-election.
Well, Margaret, you don't know that?
He is not going to run for re-election. No. He's just not going to say he's not going to run for re-election.
Does this give you pause? And you know what the other thing that troubles me? The other thing that troubles me a lot, he has a very good press secretary now who replaced Jen Psaki. And instead of being honest and saying, obviously, he was either tired or whatever, long day, and he was top of mind. Sound like Bill Belichick. Top of mind. She was top of mind and was in total denial in a whole press conference about the fact this was a screw up. And instead of admitting it and owning it, a term I hate, by the way, I know I use that, and moving on, to me, that compounded it. Just deal with it honestly and move on.
So here's the problem. Another problem is it's Joe Biden being Joe Biden. This is not different behavior from Joe Biden.
That's true.
Right?
Remember the wheelchair guy?
Just last week, or whenever he was here last, he still can't get Jake Auchincloss's gender or name correct. Every time he calls out Jake
Auchincloss was a woman?
He called her a she the first time
I didn't know
that he was in town for some reason, and then when he was over at the library or the Kennedy Institute, he called him Jack Auchincloss. So, Jake's getting a lot of press, the wrong name. The same guy who told us we were going to get same-sex marriage before Obama told anyone, he blurts things out, he gets things confused, and he's doing more of the same. He happens now to be the president of the United States, and he happens to be of a senior age, which is concerning, which it is. But again, if you were to go to your doctor and say, my grandfather is doing this, they would say to you, is it any different than what he's done? No, he's been doing it his entire life.
Well, it is true that if you looked 15 years ago about Joe Biden and gaffes, this whole thing would come up a long time when he was still, in his late 50s or early 60s or something. I mean, I was mentioning that classic story where he's out at some event. He says, hey, Joe, stand up and take a bow.
Joe's in a wheelchair.
Oh, Joe, sorry, forgot you're in a wheelchair.
How about when he called Obama articulate at a debate?
Don't forget the Indian Americans owning gas stations.
Yeah, but can I say, instead
of
excusing this, we're not going to belabor this, but instead of excusing this as Joe Biden being Joe Biden, there's got to be an honest discussion in this country about how old a person should be and be president of the United States.
But
80 years old,
sorry,
is too old.
Do you feel the same way about Warren and Bernie, who are very violent? I mean, I tell this story all the time when I was.
They're one of 100.
Right, but
that's a big difference.
But those are three.
Yeah,
right?
well, 3 of 100. No, I'll tell you what I do believe. As terrific as Nancy Pelosi is, maybe the greatest speaker ever lived, the fact that she, Clyburn, and Hoyer, the 3 leading Democrats, are all octogenarians is troubling to me.
I agree.
It's too old. It's just too old.
Okay, we'll make a bet right now.
What?
When the time comes when he thinks it's not going to hurt his agenda or it's not going to hurt Democrats, it's not going to interfere with the Democrat becoming the next president, he's going to say he's not running.
I don't think he's going to run again
He's
either,
not.
to tell you the truth.
Can I
If
tell you
they
something?
win, which I still predict, the Democrats are going to pick up seats in the House, the Senate, they're going to hold the House, and then I think a year from now, whenever they start throwing their hats in the ring, I don't think he's going to run again.
Well, let me just say this. The world owes Joe Biden a debt of gratitude for being the only person who could have defeated the most dangerous president in American history. Having said that, while I agree with both of you, if 2023 comes and all the polls show that the only person who can beat Donald Trump at age 81 or 82 is Joe Biden, he's going to be the nominee of the Democratic Party to run in 2024, and we can have that discussion then. In any case, we're talking to Sue O'Connell.
I just want to know if Gavin Newsom has any skeletons in his closet because he used to be making a lot of moves.
Don Jr.'s wife or whatever it is. Who is that woman?
She's not in the closet anymore. She's running around on stages.
Yeah, that was his first wife. That was?
Well,
we all
I think it was his wife. Yeah.
Sometimes you make mistakes in your romantic
What's her
endeavors.
name again?
Kimberly Guilfoyle, I think that's her name. Yeah, she's not my favorite person. But now he has a lovely new wife and several lovely children.
Gavin Newsom.
Yeah. And you can say to yourself, if he does have a few skeletons in his closet, well, these days, what's a few skeletons, right?
Exactly.
We tolerate a lot of skeletons.
Speaking of Jeffrey Dahmer, too, what?
Oh, God.
That was a terrible show. That show was terrible.
Well, you weren't here for it.
No, I was.
The
Netflix.
You watched the whole thing, though, didn't you?
No, I only got to the episode
Raise
3.
your right hand and say.
I only got to episode 3, and I bailed on it.
You watching the other episodes tonight?
Maybe later.
Maybe later. Okay.
Now,
I know this woman for a long time. Trust me.
Media Maven Sue O'Connell.
Yes.
Do you have a dog?
Yes, I have 2 dogs.
Well,
I have a 17-year-old dog.
Wow.
A Labrador German Shepherd mix named Inca.
Is 17?
17. I carry him.
God.
I carry her because she has arthritis, like a suitcase up and down 3 flights of stairs. And the kids on the bus, when they're coming from school, they yell, "Suitcase dog!" Suitcase dog.
Suitcase dog.
And then I have Maud, the 3-year-old Beagle mix.
Okay. Wow. So here's
she
the
came
question.
with that name. I didn't change it. Jamie's laughing at me. Go
From
ahead.
personal experience, experience, can
Yes.
you attest to the fact that dogs can smell when we are stressed out?
Yes, I know that this is supposed to be breaking news, but
Yep.
anyone who has a dog or has been paying attention, this is from the Queen's University in Belfast in the UK. They have a new experiment that they've released the results to that dogs can detect sweat and breath samples in people and recognize that they are stressed. And, you know, dogs, their whole world is smell, right?
Right.
So if you ever walked your dog down the same street every single morning and suddenly they have to stop and smell that spot and you don't know why, and if it's garbage day, it's just a horror in my neighborhood because the dog Maud just wants to get right into everything. But they also can detect, I think they work with people who are diabetic to tell if their sugar levels.
Really?
Yep, they're therapy dogs, real therapy dogs, not like therapy cockatoos or therapy peacocks
Yeah,
or therapy
real ones.
alligators.
Legitimate.
They can tell if your sugar levels are off.
You know, we had the vet we have on regularly from Angel,
Angel
whatever it's
Memorial,
called
yeah.
these days, the Great Angel. Her great line was, "A dog is a nose on four legs," which is an
Exactly,
expression.
exactly.
But having said that, Margie, do you remember we had some guest a few years ago, and we had a long conversation about that cat in Rhode Island?
Oh,
that
yeah,
can
the death
smell
cat.
when-
Death cat.
The death cat.
who could tell when someone was ready
Yes.
to die.
Jump onto the beds in the
Imagine
nursing
being
home.
in a nursing home and then you look up and in
There's
the
the death
hallway,
cat.
it's the cat. You're like, excellent, time to go.
Or jumping on your bed. There you are.
That's what it did.
2
If
feet
it jumped
away,
on your bed, you were dead.
looking at
or
you
about to be dead.
and
Yeah, no,
purring.
it is. The staff says, don't worry, she's going to be with us for another week. Oops,
yeah.
never mind.
Within
Call
24
everyone
hours,
in. Call
right?
everyone in.
Wasn't it within
Yeah.
24 hours?
Yes.
Gonzo.
They died,
There
yes.
you go. But
That's
you
a
know,
little
purring,
upsetting.
listening to the purring could be a very peaceful way to.
I hate cats. No
do-
offense. Don't
really?
send me. Just send all my
Oh, my
messages
God.
to Marjorie.
I do
they
love
should
the
be
purring.
living out in the wild. They're not domesticated pets.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty bold
Yeah, my poor
talk.
cat lived in the wild. Didn't end well, you know.
Yeah.
It's
You had a
wild out
cat?
there. I did. I had a couple of cats.
When did you have a cat?
When I was a kid.
Oh, when you're a kid.
Yeah.
Fat boy.
Well, back then we didn't. Back
That was
then,
his name.
back then
boy?
they weren't really pets. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I always laugh that my dog, who, as I said, is 17, I think wouldn't have got past age 4 if my mother had been still alive in the 1970s.
What's the
She
name
what?
of the suitcase dog again?
Inca, I-N-K-A.
So I mean this seriously because I think that's
Yeah.
actually it really is a pretty beautiful
It
story.
humanizes me a little bit, doesn't
How,
it?
very little. How is the health of the dog other than the suitcase deal? 17's pretty old.
It is really old. So she has had old dog vestibulitis, which
know
means
what
for
that
a
is.
while we thought she was having strokes, but
Oh,
that passed. She's got some high elevated liver issues.
Oh, my God.
And she can't really walk. I mean, and she's got a little dementia.
So
but,
she's basically well.
but she's got dementia, but she knows who the president is. If I ask her, I say, "Who's president?" And she says, "Joe Biden." So therefore, I know
That's
she's good
incredible.
enough to run for president if needed.
Okay.
You know, I had a 16-year-old dog, and when I showed up at
didn't
the
know
vet
that
one
either.
day, you do. I have a 16-year-old
Oh my God,
Harry?
Harry,
Harry was
the-
16?
Yes, when he was part of this mortal coil.
that
And
was a great dog.
he was a great dog. And I showed up at the vet one day, and the vet said to me, you know, there's a lot going on here with this dog.
Oh, that's horrible.
Well, we went on our last appointment, and I was waiting for the talk, right, you know, from our doctor at Angel as well. And she's like, so what's the problem? I said, well, she's not eating so well. She goes, well, we can fix all these things. I went, okay.
There you
Let's
go.
for it.
There you go.
Can I just say one thing? Whatever the name of the angel thing is, it used to be Angel and More, it's not anymore.
Yeah.
I have to say, only judging by the people we've had
They're
on
great.
here
Oh,
and
they're
other
perfect.
people
They're
who
great.
they are some of the most
Yes.
spectacular, caring, competent
Absolutely.
people on
And
the planet.
when the time comes, you can go
Oh,
to
you
the
said
special.
this, that's
Yeah, you
right.
have. That's
Death-
where we took
death room.
We had Sam, the terrier Chihuahua. He lived to be 17. I mean, small dogs usually live longer. That's why Inc. is
Yeah.
so special. But Sam, also, I thought we were in the running for oldest dog in Massachusetts,
Wow.
which made me a little competitive
Very
in a bad
exciting.
way. So I had to kind of snap out of
Because
that.
big dogs
Okay.
don't usually
Then
live
we had
past
our-
12 or 13,
Yeah.
right?
Then we had our bunny Nibbles, who lived for 4 or 5 years. That was a
Okay.
long time.
Is this in response to a question we asked you, or what is
No,
this?
but
Marjorie Taylor Greene
well, I was
and
talking about the
tantric
death
sex.
room where you can sit in,
Oh,
the
death room,
in
yeah.
low
I don't think
light.
it's called the death
It's
room.
not
is
called
called-
the death room, but you
called
could,
death
but
room.
that's in essence what it is. You go into the room, they have couches and low lights, and they have cat food, which apparently the dogs really like, and all these little nibbles and treats and blankets and pillows, and
Okay, fine.
you can sit in there with the animal for as long as you want
Okay.
before they come in and
Yeah.
and do the shot.
Okay, good.
You know, so they're
All
a
right.
great place.
Okay,
I love
that's
them.
it.
I think
Sue,
they
I don't
thank
know what
you.
to say. I got nothing to
Let's
say.
hear from for
Okay.
Sue O'Connell,
Yay.
please. Hurts her feelings.
You did a nice job with the tantric sex, Sue
I'm going to
O'Connell.
go work on. I'm going to do some tantric sex research this
I
weekend.
wish you would.
Okay. We've been speaking with Sue O'Connell, co-publisher of Bay Windows and South End News, contributor to Current on NBC, LX, and NECN, and we know her here. She is our media maven. Okay, after a quick break, it was a tough job taking over The Daily Show from Jon Stewart. After 7 years, comedian and host Trevor Noah is moving on to the next phase. We'll talk about his exit and legacy with GBH culture reporter James Bennett II, plus what James thought about a recent show at the Roadrunner, which is right near us at GBH, called by Call Me Maybe singer Carly Rae Jepsen. James Bennett is next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library.
Inflation is on everyone's minds right now, but if you turn to TikTok, you'll find Gen Z is feeling it extra hard.
I would love to achieve my dreams, but the world is gonna melt in a decade and college costs $1 million. So instead of investing in my future, I have decided to just simply vibe.
Hear that story this afternoon on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you. And Babson College. You can explore graduate programs at the #1 school for entrepreneurship ranked by U.S. News & World Report. Hosting a virtual open house on October 6th and 7th. babson.edu/grad-open-house.
And Swan Galleries with African American Art at auction Thursday, October 6th, featuring abstract works by Norman Lewis and Romare Bearden and contemporary work from Bissa Butler and Noah Purifoy. Information on Swan Galleries app or swangalleries.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie. My mouth is full. I apologize with the smoked bluefish
It's
from
disgraceful, Jim.
Dear Annie. It is incredible. Live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're joined now by James Bennett II. He reports on arts here at GBH. His monthly thing about Drop offers a list of the best things to do in and around town that won't break your bank, which is huge. James, it's great to see you. Great.
We are doing very, very well. I'm very happy to see you because you got a lot of great stuff to talk about here. Let's start with...
What, are you texting some friends on the damn show? What are you doing here?
That's called referring to notes.
Oh, okay.
You have notes.
Fine.
You have
He's referring to notes. Yes, that's right. That's right.
Thank you.
He's got everything on his phone. So to get people in the mood, let's start with a little sound. You went into this concert at the Roadrunner. It's right near us at GBH, actually.
It is.
And here's some Carly Rae Jepsen's Too Much that came out in 2019. Let's hear it.
Hello. Hi there. How are you?
I was okay. I was listening to the song.
Okay,
So
fine.
I want to tell you something.
You were
I'm
thinking
gonna-
too much.
I'm going to suck up big time to you right now, James Bennett, because I was reading this story and I didn't realize because I didn't see your name on this story, and I said, "Who wrote this?"
She did.
And the reason I said, "Who wrote this?" is because you have. This is absolutely beautiful. When you say her lyrics tempt, I'm going to read it. I'm going to embarrass you now. Her lyrics tempt nostalgia for a bliss that may only exist in your imagination, allowing you to reconstruct your past as a Disney Channel original movie and invite you to reflect on the most intense crushes and hopes of your youth. It doesn't matter if you didn't share a first kiss at the homecoming dance or you couldn't savor the cool of an ice cream cone because of intolerance to lactose. We can all relate to that. I mean, you did a beautiful job with this. So I just want to tell you, you really, it's beautiful writing.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So I used to write for a living. That's why I admire people who write beautifully. But tell us about Carly Rae.
It felt like so we were here not long ago talking about Olivia Rodrigo.
Yes.
And seeing like literal children packed wall to wall in that same venue. And this was that except for adults, because Carly Rae Jepsen, I just realized the other day, came onto the international scene 10 years ago. That's when Call Me Maybe came out.
That was 10 years.
That was 10 years.
Which is a great song.
Well, to be fair, the single itself came out in 2011, but it came to the U.S. charts and internationally a couple of months later in 2012 in anticipation of her second studio album. She had already been doing work, but that was like her break. So it's been 10 years since she's been a name that we know. And so like seeing like a bunch of, you know, like early to mid 30-somethings, maybe like some 40-somethings, wall to wall, in like a very like cavernous venue like Roadrunner.
No seats at Roadrunner.
No, I mean you can sit like on, you know, poured cement stairs, like there's seats by, you know, but no, you're standing up and you're jumping around. Someone continuously kept jumping into me. It was totally fine. I just didn't know you could like get sauce at a Carly Rae Jepsen concert. This guy was having the time of his life, and I didn't begrudge him one bit for it. But everyone was smiling so hard. The amount of like love shared between like strangers. Like there was a guy that just jumped kind of over like a barricade. It was like, yeah, come dance with us and hang out in our crowd. And he's like, yeah. And like he goes, and I'm like, where are your kids? I don't know. Like it was like being a junior in high school all over again. But here's the thing. I wouldn't know. My high school experience was weird, but listening to that music, I'm like, oh, that's what being a cool kid in high school is like, and having a car and like.
That's right. Do people wear masks at all at these things, or is it just we're not worried about it anymore?
Yeah, didn't you hear like, you know, COVID doesn't exist anymore?
That's right. COVID doesn't exist anymore.
Well, yeah, no one's wearing a mask.
You know, can I say one thing about Roadrunner? Since you've talked to us about Roadrunner before, and I think the first Boston band there was the Dropkick Murphys. The only reason I'm bringing this up, Ken Casey was on TV with me last night.
There was a great segment.
And last night, he was great.
Second band.
Second band. Yeah. Okay, we talked about his new restaurant, Yellow Door Taqueria, the third. But they have a new CD called "This Machine Still Kills Fascists," a line from Woody Guthrie's guitar. It's all Woody Guthrie lyrics that were not released that they set to music. And this is spectacular. I mean, it's just nothing. It's all acoustic. It is brilliant. People should check it out. This Machine Still Kills Fascists. We are talking to James Bennett II.
So let's hear a little bit about Japanese breakfast. You want to start with the sound? I may as well start with the sound.
Yeah, start with some sound.
Yeah, here's the chorus of Japanese breakfast. Be sweet. But tell us about them.
Okay, so here's the thing about Japanese breakfast that was so great. I talked to Michelle Zana, the front woman, a couple weeks ago, and she told me that one of her favorite bands was Yo La Tengo. Yo La Tengo was the opener for her on this tour, which I don't know if it's like fair to say she's touring this album, but her memoir, Crying in H Mart, is being adapted into a screenplay.
Wow.
And she's working on that. Like she has some experience directing the band's music video, so this is her like shot like a feature film. So Yo La Tengo is on this tour, and towards the end of their opening set, they're playing I Heard You Lookin'. And I was actually distracted on my phone at the time with news about the Russo-Ukrainian war. I don't know why I was looking at my phone and the news at a concert, but I was. And then I hear this roar from the audience, and I look up, and Michelle's walking onto the stage to hop behind the keys for an extended jam of I Heard You Lookin', you know, the guitars are just kind of wailing and descending into like, you know, this chaos, this retching sound from these machines. But, you know, she and the bass and the drums are just like holding a very grounding groove. And it's like watching, she was like fangirling out. That's effectively what was happening. And, you know, you could feel really, really happy for her, because it's like, what would it be like for you to play with your favorite band? But more importantly, the thing that I really thought about with Japanese breakfast was like the wizardry of making music. Like playing an instrument in and of itself is relatively unremarkable. A lot of people do that. I know a lot of people have done that for millennia, but we're still captivated by the showmanship of it all, by the virtuosity of it all, by like the pure kind of like happiness of it all. So, I mean, I'm seeing that saxophone right there. There's a saxophone at Carly Rae, there's a saxophone at Japanese breakfast. When that sax gets picked up everyone's like, yeah! And it's like, you've heard a saxophone before, but you still are kind of like, I cannot wait to hear what it's going to do. When she swaps out her electric guitar for an acoustic, guitar for, a bit of a, down-tempo, like ballady kind of thing, everyone's like, just give me that sweet, sweet sadness. And it's like this alchemy of like vibrating, air that we're still kind of, like bowing to. We're adoring the Magi in these situations.
I'll embarrass myself and say I didn't know anything about their music until we knew you were coming. Crying in H Mart happened to be around my house for reasons I won't bore you with. And I read part of this. I don't know if you read it. It is spectacular. I mean, just if I remember, she loses her mother and basically loses herself in cooking, which helps get her through this. And it is, I think it's brilliant. And is it, you said it's going to be a movie or it may be a movie, or what did you say a second ago?
It was something about that, yeah. It was being adapted, yeah.
That's great. It's really terrific, and I would check out the band and whatever. So last night there was very bad news, at least for people like me. Here's what Trevor Noah had to say on the Daily Show.
I realized that after the 7 years, my time is up. But in the most beautiful way, honestly. I've loved hosting this show. It's been one of my greatest challenges. It's been one of my greatest joys. We've laughed together, we've cried together. But after 7 years, I feel like it's time.
We can all speak to his talent and how we feel about him. I think he's brilliant. And I never even heard of him when he took over for Jon Stewart. Marjorie and I spend a week in New Hampshire every primary season before the presidential election. And Trevor Noah, because the show was fairly new, I guess a cycle or two ago, had a reception. And how many people were in the room? 500 maybe, Marjorie?
Maybe
I don't know.
Like
we
that.
went. Trevor Noah walked around the room after he spoke and shook the hand of every single person in the room, which I thought was such a gracious, generous, loving kind of thing. So in addition, I don't know him personally. I read a little bit of his book, which I thought was brilliant too. What's your take on Trevor? And by the way, he's young. He's only been there, 7 years. What's your take on the Noah departure?
7 years is a long time. I hope. I know.
Don't talk to us about 7 years.
I
being
mean,
a long
listen,
time.
time is relative and it speeds up as you experience more of it. But like, that's still almost 2 full presidential terms.
Yeah.
7 years is like 7 grades when you're a kid, which feels like a lifetime, kind of, sort of. And so, I mean, I think it was in that same departure kind of a memo speech, I don't know what you call it, monologue, there we go, where he alluded to wanting to like read books and like tour the world and like do things and like have fun. Not saying that that's not fun for him, but he has other interests too. And that's the thing that I think someone brought up on NPR's Code Switch talking about the retirement of Serena Williams, right? Like these people have been doing these things for an extended period of time. They're putting in so much work, but it's easy to lose sight of the fact that like they have their own interests and like other passions too. I remember when like Trevor Noah took over for Jon Stewart, it was like that, there was a huge, conversation about it. There was a New York Times alert. I remember talking to some people back in 2015 when that happened, and they were like, what's the big deal? I don't get it. And I think, if anything, we've come to accept that The Daily Show is even more of a big deal than it was. Like Jon Stewart did so much work, like kind of, transforming that into like this staple of like, not even late night, early evening commentary. I don't know what time The Daily Show comes on. Shows what I know. But that's other thing. What?
I don't know what time
It's 11, yeah.
I think so.
They air the previous nights early, and then they air the new one at 11. That's right, yeah. And so, I don't know why he's leaving, and I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he just wants to go explore this stuff. 7 years is not a short time.
Yeah, the thing about him, some of these talk show people that have done this, and by the way, he's biracial, but he's the first black guy really to succeed in a big way as a talk show host. I mean, everybody else is white and has been white.
Let's not forget Arsenio.
Yeah, but he was, I would say Trevor's bigger.
Oh, yeah, I guess
deal.
bigger, yeah.
But in any case, you don't ever want to feel uncomfortable, if the joke doesn't work or the interview's going poorly. And he's got that, you never feel uncomfortable watching him.
Well, he's totally charming.
He's totally charming.
In addition to being brilliant.
And I think he did the correspondence dinner really well, which is, people have really screwed up that correspondence dinner. He did that very well. So and the other thing, he wrote that great book about growing up in South Africa. That was a great read too. So I don't know. And he's so adorable.
You know, you raised a really important thing, though, that I guess I should have thought about before. When you mentioned Serena Williams, it's like you just spoke to it from the perspective of Williams and Noah. I feel it from the perspective of a consumer of their work, and you feel like something's being taken away from you, almost like, how dare you? I want to see this woman play, and I want to see him do interviews and tell jokes. And it's, you know what I mean? I mean, it's sort of, some of us approach it from the self-serving, selfish side of this, as opposed to they're sort of human too, kind of thing.
It's like we fall into this trap that we expect them to give us stuff. I'm like, they don't know any of us. They don't owe, they don't owe me or you. They don't owe us anything at all. Like, someone was, I remember this was a while ago, but people were like mad that Lauryn Hill hadn't released a new record in like however many years, and she's late for her show. But I'm just like, she had a great, like, she's a great rapper and singer. She doesn't owe me anything.
Yeah.
She gave us, you know, some great work with the Fugees, and she gave us the miseducation of Lauryn Hill. I'm happy with that. I'll keep listening to that.
She's entitled to get tired. She's entitled to want to break.
You know.
She's entitled to pay attention to her relationships or her family and stuff like that. But I don't know. It sounds like he's going to do a lot of stand-up. It sounds like he's going to do a lot of traveling. So, you know, he'll be around.
Well, you know, the significance of this, too, beyond the fact that I think he's extraordinary, is we do every couple of months, or every maybe twice a year, we talk about where do people get their news, and a significant chunk of young people get their news from The Daily Show and Daily Show-like things. So beyond the entertainment value, which is colossal, it's got a huge impact on how people view the world. Particularly a subset of people view the world.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the thing I was trying to look at before I got here. I was like, what's the ratings looking like for The Daily Show now? And then I was like, but do they actually even matter? Because, you know, I'd see on Twitter, there'll be like a clip from The Daily Show, and then you'll watch that clip and say, huh, that was good, or that was insightful. I was talking to somebody at the office who was, you know, like, they'll see the clip and then they'll want to go and watch, you know, the more extended interview. So there's still like a value add to the conversation, even if you're airing it in a 30-minute block on like late night TV and then like slicing it up into like, you know, 5 2-minute, I know that doesn't add up to 30, but 5 2-minute clips to, you know, throw onto Twitter or YouTube or whatever.
Yeah. And also, he was the first guy that wasn't an American.
That's true. And Americans love accents.
He does have a very nice
Well,
accent.
you know, it's, as you're speaking, I'm realizing, speaking of the only or first, Samantha Bee, goodbye. First woman, I think, who had a nighttime show, and Conan O'Brien's
From
gone. There's a
Brookline,
whole
he's gone.
change kind of thing going on.
So tell us about Coolio. He wasn't very old, died in 59. We don't know what happened.
We're losing these folks. You
Yeah.
know? I was just at, this the shirt shows, like I was at the Wu-Tang Nas joint tour a couple weeks ago, and RZA came out and was just like, we've lost so many like New York, you know, born hip hop icons over like, you know, the past, you know, years. And, you know, Coolio's not New York, right? But that still speaks to like the volume of, you know, lost artists, which kind of blows. The thing with Coolio, and it's weird, I spent not like most of my lockdown in any measure, but I started thinking about Coolio a lot, like maybe in the past like 1.5 to 2 years. And I'm like, why? He was good. Like, he was a good rapper. He was like a whimsical gangster. Like, his brand of like G-Funk, you know, his brand of like, you know, West Coast gangster rap from like the early 90s, or I guess early to mid 90s, was like, it was funny. Like, Mama in Love with a Gangster, that's a funny song. Fantastic Voyage, like, there was this period of time where, like, I feel a lot of hip-hop albums always had, like, one weirdly positive track on it. Like, remember Straight Outta Compton, there was, like, Express Yourself? You're like, where's this coming from? Or, like, Big L had, like, Street Struck, where it's like, don't be like me. Go to school and get a job. Be a lawyer or a ball player. And, like, Fantastic Voyage is just kind of like, you know, what's the line? It's, you know, it doesn't really matter if you're white or black. I just want to, you know, eat some steak with my beans and rice. I want to go, my kids getting shot in a drive-by. You're like, yeah, this is a fun kind of like funky way to think about society and our happiness. But I was listening to It Takes a Thief last night on some awful headphones. Would not recommend listening to that album on the Orange Line or any album mixed before like 2000. I don't know.
Yeah,
and just
cleaner,
like
though.
Yeah. What?
It's cleaner though.
It's cleaner though, but it's also slower. Sorry.
It's okay.
Well, I feel a lot of our introduction to Coolio was with the Keenan and Kel theme song.
Yeah.
And he's no longer with us, Coolio, and I guess he's taking with him to the grave. There's a mystery lyric in that song Takes Two. Like, there's like a line in there. It's like it's very muddled, and I guess we'll never know what he's actually saying. But what's interesting is a year after that, it's when he got dropped from his label. It's like he recorded that theme at like the height of his like cultural like powers, and then his next record didn't sell as well as they wanted it to. I guess
the height of his cultural powers, like 25 years ago.
That's what I'm saying. It's like the Keenan, like I knew Coolio first, like the Keenan and Kel theme. Like that show debuted when I was like, what, 5 or 6? And I was like, who's that guy? That's a fun dude. And then looking back, it's like, wow, he got dropped from his label like less than 12 months after like recording that album for, you know, a successful show that, you know, was just stop on the career of a very successul actor.
So before you go, we're short on time. The Drop.
The Drop.
I know what it is. Not everybody may know what it is. What is it?
Well, The Drop is a name that stuck. The Drop is like it's a newslettery thing. Is it coming out a newsletter? It's a newslettery thing of things to do in Boston that are free and cheap. It's a very selfish endeavor because I'm new to Boston and I'm like, how do I spend my days after I am done with work? So this is mainly a collection of things that I find that you can go do for, I do like under like $25-$30, preferably for free.
There's a lot of stuff too.
Yeah, also from food to arts to museums to movies to whatever.
There's
live
like 3 food fests this weekend alone. There's like the Boston like Veg Fest. There's like a rib smoke cook-off thing in like East Cambridge. I don't know how the ribs are up here. I will not make a comment, but you can tell me after. I'm very curious. There is a food truck convention market thingy down in like Quincy. Like, there's a lot going on food-wise. That's like the first weekend alone. But, you know, there is at Peabody Essex an exhibit on 19th century Chinese photography. It's like 130 photographs, and the idea is how images of China kind of reshaped like the West's view of it as like a country and as like a nation state and political entity. So you can go, I guess, and think about how looking at images of places that you've never previously considered kind of like affects and alters your view. But yeah, there's stuff. Just go look at
Peabody Essex Museum in Salem for those who don't know.
How do people get that?
Yes.
We can take that and throw it into the people.
Those who are not here.
For those that aren't here, yeah, it's gbh.org/thedrop.
Easy to remember.
That's pretty easy to remember.
Pretty
Thanks,
easy to remember.
Slugs, URLs.
James, it's very good to see you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, James. Great to talk to you as always. We've been speaking with James Bennett II. He's a culture reporter here at GBH. You can check out his reviews and culture commentary on gbh.org. Plus, what we just talked about, his monthly series, The Drop, a rundown of the best things to do in and around the city for cheap. That's on a budget. They're not cheap. They're on a budget. After a quick break, took nearly 2.5 years for the
It's been 9 months since Mayor Wu's clearing of Mass and Cass, but many people experiencing homelessness have returned. I'm Soraya Wintersmith. Join me tonight as we discuss where the mayor's efforts stand now and what more Boston needs. Plus, the White House is pushing to end hunger in less than 10 years. We'll talk to Massachusetts lawmakers working on the issue here at home. All that on Talking Politics tonight at 7 on GBH2 and online at gbhnews.org.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Bryant University, dedicated to educating and inspiring graduate and undergraduate students to excel as innovative leaders prepared to make a difference around the world. Learn more at bryant.edu. And Gloucester Stage, presenting The Thin Place, a haunting production that is part ghost, part seance, as a granddaughter looks to reconnect with the spirit of her grandmother. Now through October 23rd. GloucesterStage.com.
He's Jim Browdy.
And she's Marjorie Egan, and this is 89.7 WGBH, WGBH HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. Boston's local NPR. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. It's a Friday afternoon here on BPR, which means it's time for a segment we love called Live Music Fridays. Today is spectacular. Since the 40s, Wally's Jazz Club Cafe has been a local music institution. It's the oldest family-run jazz club, maybe in the world. We'll find out in a second. Like a lot of places, COVID was not kind to Wally's. Luckily for us, the city and donors on GoFundMe were kind, helped keep the club intact for reopening earlier this month. In a couple of minutes, we'll be treated to some music from Wally's premier in-house band, Sphere 427. We'll also speak to two leaders of the band. We'll introduce them all in a minute. Right now, though, joining us for an interview at the desk is Frank Poindexter. Frank is a co-owner of the legendary Wally's Cafe Jazz Club in the South End. He's been going since he was a mere 3 years old. You'll hear why in a minute. Frank, it's great to see you, and congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're
it's
alive,
a pleasure to see
and
you,
it's
Jim.
great.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We're fortunate to be, back open, and, we love what we do. And
do you remember, I had you on television in November during
you
COVID,
sure did.
and I
That's
said, are you convinced you're going to survive? Not personally, but as a cafe, as a jazz club. And your answer was almost exactly this: I'm worried, but I have faith in my government and, most importantly, in my community.
Exactly.
And the community had faith in you.
Up. They stepped up, and they took care of us, and they believed in our mission, and we got great support. So we're fortunate to be in this state, in this city, which is a world-class city. We have world-class talent in this city. We have great super institutions in this city. And so, we're super fortunate.
Okay, we have to get to the bottom of this. Are you, in fact, the oldest family-run jazz club in the world? Is that correct,
Well,
or is that an
on our
exaggeration?
website, we don't say we are, but we're amongst.
Okay, you're amongst.
We started
Okay.
in 1947, and we've been continuously, through the generations of our family, being able to provide this forum for musicians to perfect their craft.
So tell us where you're located and what it's like in there.
Well, we got a small venue which holds about 70 people, and we're located at 427 Massachusetts Avenue. We're 2 blocks south of Boston Symphony Hall, and we're surrounded by some of the greatest music institutions on the planet. You got Boston Conservatory, Berkeley, New England Conservatory. Never mind, you have Harvard, BU, and the other surrounding schools that have music programs also. So we're in a special place because a majority of the musicians are being trained in this city and in this state. And then they end up going to LA, New York, Nashville, to the other major centers.
Frank, what did it feel like when you finally opened the doors? Is it September 8th or some day?
Yes, it was September 8th.
What did it feel like when it actually happened?
It felt like a relief. It just felt like, going back home. That's what it felt like, we were out of our element. We're used to hearing music and working and being in this network of, musicians and great customers and people that love live music. And so that feeling was a feeling of coming back home.
So we're going to hear some music now from Sphere 427. What are we going to hear?
I know what we're going to hear. If you
have
don't,
to ask the band.
Well, first
they're going to be able to tell you that.
I can tell you that, and
Yes,
we're going to be joined in a couple of
Kevin
minutes by
Harris
two of the
Noah.
players. We're first going to hear from Kevin Harris. Is that correct, Kevin? I hope I got this right. And I believe you guys are going to be playing "Potential to Be." Is that correct? Take it away, gentlemen. We're thrilled to have you. That was fabulous. I think Kevin and Noah are joining us, or are they not? Yeah, they are. Come on over, gentlemen,
Yeah,
for
that
a
was
second.
Potential to Be, written by Kevin Harris. And the members of the band are Kevin Harris, the piano, he's the co-leader, Noah Preminger, tenor sax, co-leader, Max Ridley, acoustic bass, and Tyson Jackson on the drums.
And by the way, Max and Tyson have played here in other iterations in the last few weeks, and it's great to have them back. They're putting on their headsets. They're going to play again in a second, by the way. We just wanted to say hello, gentlemen. That was fabulous. By the way, it was really fabulous on a Friday afternoon at the library. Before we ask you what it's like to play at Wally's again, what's it like to play at the library there, Kevin? How great is that?
Acoustics are great over in those corners.
Aren't they?
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing, isn't
Especially
it?
playing with these musicians. It's awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having us.
We're thrilled to have you.
So how'd you all get together? How is Sphere 427 happen?
Okay, so we played here years ago with Jason Palmer, fantastic trumpeter, I'm sure many Boston people are familiar. He played at Wally's as a band leader for almost 20 years, something like that, long time.
Yeah.
One of the longest house institution band leaders probably in the world at a jazz club, I would imagine.
Yeah. Played for quite some time.
And I joined Jason about 7-8 years ago when I moved back to Boston. And when did you come in?
Well, I first met Jason. He and I both went together at the New England Conservatory, so we go way back. Like I started in '98. I think Jason started a year before that, so we've been knowing each other, overlapping in Wally's Jazz Club for a long time.
Yeah, speaking of Wally's Jazz Club, Kevin, I mean, you guys both, who read about, have immense careers outside of this incarnation of your musical existence. But what's it mean to have Wally's back in action, Kevin? What's the significance of that in this community?
So for me, it means a lot because there's a lot that we as musicians learn and have learned a lot. It's the cultivating ground for the musicians we've become. For example, we have some great albums coming out. I have one that's coming out in 2023. It'll be featuring Terry Lynn Carrington. I think a lot of the projects that we have are international. Like I'm going to be headed to Bangkok. This guy is all over the world too. We're going to be doing like festivals. None of that is possible without being able to cultivate the way we have at Wally's Jazz Club. To be able to just go out and, give what we have in a creative fashion to the world with having cultivated that here. It's very special.
So when you say, Kevin just said, Noah, you're all around the world. So what does that mean? You're just performing in different groups all around the world, all over the place?
Yeah, Kevin and I both have our own groups that we lead in different, with different personnel, different instrumentation. We also both work as sidemen in different contexts. So maybe one month we're working in Europe as a band leader. Maybe another month we're working with somebody in China as a side person. So it just depends.
By the way, if your thing falls apart, you have pretty good radio voice, by the way. No,
Yeah,
so if this
I
whole
know.
music thing doesn't work.
Do you do radio? I bet you do
I have a radio show.
Oh,
You have a radio show. There you go.
Well, that's too bad.
Really? What's your radio show?
It's a competing station, is it all right?
You're allowed to.
Sure.
Okay, at WICN in Worcester.
I'm sorry, you can't mention
terrific.
that.
Yeah.
When is that?
Wednesday nights at 10. Yeah, I play music I like.
That's fabulous.
Yeah. Mhm.
And
So
you guys had mentioned that, just with the international thing, I don't want to leave out Max and Tyson because with some of those, at the beginning of the year, Max and I will be going to Panama to play the Panama Jazz Festival to accompany a great vocalist, Nadia Washington. So Tyson's always on the run too, so he's quite popular.
So
too.
no, what do you? You're going to be featured, I'm told, in this one. What are you playing, you guys?
This is a composition of mine from a record actually that comes out today,
Nice.
coincidentally, called Sky Continuous. And it's on Crisscross Records, which is a Dutch record label. This song, I pulled inspiration from two places. One is a magnificent poet in Boston, based here, named Keith Jones. And I think he actually just took over poet in residence at New England Conservatory of Music, as a matter of fact. And he sends me his poetry, which I love, and some of it's difficult for me to understand because it's a foreign language, just like many of you might feel about jazz music. But this one poem really stuck out, and there was a line in it, Sky Continuous. And I started writing some music, and with that in mind, I'm also a motorcyclist, and I was thinking about the open sky when you're on the highway or wherever. And so this next composition is inspired by his poetry and Open Road.
Okay, and when can people find you guys playing at Wally's Cafe?
Tonight.
Tonight.
Yeah.
But it's
And
not just
tomorrow.
tonight, and tomorrow.
Every
Fridays
Friday,
and Saturdays,
Saturday.
right?
10 p.m. is when we play.
Okay, you guys are great. You want to go back to your bandmates
We'd
and
love to.
play a little bit? And by the way, the 427 in the band's name, obviously, I assume you know, is the address of Wally's
Well,
Cafe.
the whole name, Spheres 427,
Yeah.
comes from, the idea that when people enter and leave, Wally's Jazz Club, that sphere is where we learn as musicians, it's where we get to expand ideas, just that sphere, that area is where.
You want to know something?
Yeah.
You and Noah talk exactly like you play. Do you know that? I'm serious. I mean, it's the same. That's a compliment. I hope you think. It is exactly the same deal. Your words, it's amazing. Take the headphone off,
Cool.
go over there and play.
Cool. All right, sounds good.
Wow. Let me say again the names of these four players. They're great. Kevin Harris, Noah Preminger, that's who we just heard. Max Ridley's on the acoustic bass. Tyson Jackson, he's been here before, as is Max, are on drums. Friday and Saturday night at Wally's, you can catch them, and they are playing Sky Continuous. Gentlemen, again, please.
That
way
was
he does.
Sky Continuous, written by Noah Preminger, who's on the saxophone, and we have been speaking with the folks from Wally's Cafe Jazz Club in the South End, Kevin Harris, Noah Preminger, Max Ridley, and Tyson Jackson. Their premier Friday, Saturday band, Sphere, 427. Hear them at 10 o'clock. That's right, tonight and tomorrow night at 10 o'clock. Earlier we talk with co-owner Frank Poindexter, who is thrilled that the Jazz Club has reopened. Thank you so much, you guys.
Good luck to all you
That
guys,
was
Frank.
wonderful.
Everybody, it's great to have
After
you.
a quick break, voice memos are the latest iteration in our centuries-long de-evolution of communication. Do you use them? Are you annoyed by them? Are we better off just picking up the damn phone and making a phone call? Texting, voice memes? What do you think? You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting from the Boston Public Library.
New images out of Rikers Island Jail in New York City show just how dangerous the situation is for detainees and inmates.
Detainee locked in a caged shower for nearly 24 hours. Incarcerated people even administering chest compressions themselves.
That's next time on The Takeaway from WNYC and PRX.
This afternoon at 2, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you and CIC Innovation Campus. CIC is working to reimagine the office for the needs of today's workforce. You can schedule a tour of CIC's flexible office spaces at cic.com/enterprise. And Guava Health, a personal health tracker that keeps your health information in one place. You can find records, see health trends, and track your symptoms and meds. Available on Android, iOS, and guavahealth.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Mark Regan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The Wall Street Journal declared this week that 2022 is, quote, the year of the voice messages. Not voicemail, but sending short little voice messages in place of text. If you've never seen them, you get a little audio file where the text would normally be. You hold the phone up to your ear and listen, and then the message is gone in a couple of minutes. So we're ending the show today. We don't have much time. By opening our voice and text lines to ask, are the cultural beacons of the journal right about voice memos? Do they really embody this moment, as they say, for how we communicate with one another? Or do you prefer hearing someone's tone in a short message rather than just reading their words? And how is this any different than just having a typical phone conversation or a dreaded voicemail message? Personally, my favorite form of communication has always been the short, cryptic, misspelled text message, that and food. 877-301-8970 is the number, and you can tweet us. Don't tweet us. It's too late. Call us or text us at 877-301-8970. Since time is short, can I say how I feel about this?
Yes.
I hate it. I find the voice thing, it takes more time. It is really intrusive.
I don't think it takes more time.
Yeah, it does take more time.
Okay.
Because you got to listen. I mean, as opposed to reading words, which you can do rapidly, you got to listen. If people's speech patterns
No,
are such.
but you can send it pretty quickly as opposed to texting
and
it.
you get them back in return. I understand that. But I like the whole, the neutrality, for lack of a better expression, of the more traditional text. I like the written word. The only problem, which the voice memo does fix, is occasionally a text is misconstrued, which can be really problematic for the sender and occasionally for the receiver. But I hate it. And by the way, the good news is there's a real split on this. According to the Wall Street Journal story, it's a virtual split in terms of people like getting them and like sending them versus not and not. I'm in the not category. How about you?
Well, you know what's kind of pathetic, but I have found, many, many years now into using cell phones, and sometimes I don't leave anybody messages anymore because nobody ever listens to them, so what's the point of leaving a message? I haven't left a message in years. But you'd almost feel like calling people now is intrusive.
Exactly my point.
Totally intrusive.
It is.
So now, you do this. You'll say, can I call you in 2 minutes? Can I call you when I'm thinking? I mean, my life is not that exciting. What am I doing, that I can't be called? But I think that's how people feel now. They have to text somebody before they call them. And so I guess...
What's your point exactly?
I guess texting is less intrusive, and you don't have to really get involved. But it's kind of awful in a way because it's so cold.
Okay, fine. Now let me be as kind.
Isn't it better to hear somebody's voice?
No. Now let me explain to you as kindly as I can. Would you agree when you used to leave me voicemails, which you do not anymore?
I do not.
Because I've asked you not to, and you've been very polite.
Well, you never listen to them. No one ever listens to them.
Well, because would you not agree that what you might be able to say in 15 seconds often takes, let me be kind, a tad longer to get to the point? And I'm crazy about it, but that happens to be true. The beauty of a text message, you construct it the way you want. And if it isn't exactly as you want it, you probably rewrite a thing. So it's succinct, to use your word, from your end, tight and sort of, as I say, neutral from my end. Again, intrusive is the word. I find the voice, unless I've invited it, to be incredibly intrusive. So keep sending me texts. 877-301-8970 is
well, you know
the phone
what
number.
the thing is that no one ever listens to anybody's voicemail. If someone leaves you a voicemail now, you just call them back, don't you? You don't listen to their voicemail. So they've left you this long voicemail in some instances, which you don't even listen to. So maybe that will change.
Well, these are short and tight, though.
That short,
doesn't
tight,
apply to
and
that.
that will make a difference, I think, if they're short and tight little messages. And what's really annoying is people text you when you're driving, and they know you're driving. Supposedly, you can send these little voice messages more easily when you're driving. I don't know if you can.
Well, also, can we get one more thing about the voicemail, even though it isn't our topic? Would you agree that you often start a voicemail when you used to leave them with me by saying, Jim, I got something really important to say to you, and it might be 2 minutes later when that important thing is conveyed? I'm serious. Is that unfair?
Listen, I've learned.
Is that
I've
unfair?
adapted, Jim. This is like 10 years ago. 10 years ago when I was terrible. 10 years ago I was terrible.
I didn't say you were terrible.
No, I was bad about that. I think I tried to smarten up as the years went by. And now, like I said, I would never dare to call you. Your voicemail has been full for about the last 20 years.
I wonder why that is, by the way.
Because you don't want anyone to leave your voicemail.
Exactly. 877-301-8970. Forget voicemail. We're not talking about these voice memos versus text. What's your preference and why? We're short on time. Thomas and Quincy, you're first. Hi.
Oh, hey guys, it's Thomas and Quincy.
That's why I said Thomas and Quincy. Hi, Thomas and Quincy. How are you?
Good. I'm neutral on it. I use it sometimes just to say, I don't know, cute messages to my wife. But my favorite thing is when you hear the people doing it in public, and they'll say the punctuation. So you'll hear the person do it, and they'll be really
good.
"Oh, are you gonna meet me at the store later?"
Question mark.
Exclamation point. And it's just when I hear those people, I just can't stop laughing.
That's a pretty good call. Thomas, thank you for making it. 877-301-8970. So do you have a position on this? I'm sorry, I'm not quite clear. Do you or don't you? No. Do you?
Well, no. I guess I don't have a position on it. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that these are any better than.
Would you rather get a text from me or a voice memo? Yeah, which one?
I don't. Well, that's the thing. I don't listen to voice messages anymore.
It's,
so I'd rather
it's a little
get a
tight,
text.
little short thing.
I know, but I think even if I got one of those, I might not listen.
So
to
you want a
either.
text to keep coming?
Usually, I feel this is how I feel, Jim.
Okay, fine.
We'll get to the bottom of this.
I hope so.
If I get a text or a voice meme, a voice message, the text line thing, or anything, I call the person back. That's what I do. If they want to talk to me, I call them back. That's how I handle it.
Okay, where do you want to go next?
Let's go to David. Is it David?
David, it's
in
David.
Rosendale? Hi, David.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah. Hi. David Elliott in Rosendale.
David Elliott, what's up?
I've only started. This is my first time calling, but I've listened to you for years.
Thank you.
But I just had a little funny story. I've only started using voice text recently because I'm a realtor, so I had an issue with a client, and in real estate you have a purchase and sale agreement, which is often abbreviated as a P&S. So I sent this couple a quick text message and said, "Please sign the penis as soon as possible."
Well, that's a problem. I think that would be a problem. Would you not? And by the way, did they sign it, David?
Yes. Well, she replied back to me, "I'll get on that as soon as I can, but I don't know how to get it back to you."
Excuse me, I'll get on that as soon as I can. Another good response. Well, David, we're glad you shared that with us for your first call. By the way, you're the first, we've been on the air 25 years, first call where the person's first call was about a penis. So thank you, David. You've made history right here on Boston Public Radio. David, thanks for the
Well,
call.
you could see where you would could get the words mixed
Yeah,
up.
I
PNS
do.
and,
The other thing, yeah.
Yeah, purchase and sale.
But the
I
biggest
believe.
problem, you ever had a problem when you sent somebody a text message and it was totally misunderstood? You meant it humorously, for example, which they can tell with your voice. That's the only reason the voicemail works.
Well, that's a big point. That's
Yeah.
a big point. It's people try to explain their emotions with these endless emojis that you get too. They're supposed
Hate
to try
'em.
to explain if they're
We
happy
should
or
be talking
sad
about
or
that instead,
surprised
by the
or
way.
that kind of thing. So yeah, I think you can misunderstand people absolutely. In a text
So do you
message.
not send emojis because you don't know how to do it?
I just don't like them.
I find it, I occasionally communicate with, and I really don't want you to say, oh, Jim communicates. I occasionally communicate with someone who is relatively important and powerful in the world, and you get a response.
Oh,
well,
I
see, I knew I couldn't
exchange
do this. Okay,
messages
fine.
with someone who's
In my
powerful
job, I meant in
the
my
world.
job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you get a little smiley face or a wink back
Okay,
on an
well, look
emoji,
at
how do
this-
you feel about that?
Look at this text we have right now.
What is
Texts are not misconstrued if you used emojis, Jim. Now look at
That
the two,
actually is a
look
pretty-
at the two emojis.
They are pretty.
What are they? What is the message you're getting from those two emojis?
I think the first one is I'm switching stations, and I'm not sure what the. No, by the way, that
second
is a
one-
very. I'm hesitate to admit that is a very good point.
The second one is a wink.
It is
the
a
person
wink.
is winking at
I
you.
can, I've sent a wink from time to time. By
What
the
does
way, I
that
must
mean?
admit.
Does that person like you?
What does it mean if I go like this? Look at me now. What does that mean?
I don't know, Jim.
Okay.
What does it mean?
Well, you figured out, Marjorie.
877-301-8970 is the number. Apparently, we've entered the age of recorded voice messages, and according to the Wall Street Journal, and they're on top of all these trends.
They are.
This is the year of the recorded voice message.
But by the way,
pushing
it's not.
aside-
Excuse me, it's not. I'll read you the numbers. The same story says 22% of people responded to their survey like getting it. 25% don't. 16% like sending voice memos. 36% say they don't. So how is it the year of anything when not a majority, a plurality, is that what that's called?
I don't
More
know.
people don't like it than like it. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I think that they're trying to make the point that this is a trend that is growing. I think
Oh,
that's the,
okay, that's fine.
that's the theory.
Let's go to Bronwyn. Hey, Bronwyn, you're in Winchester. You're on Boston Public Radio. Thank you for calling. Hi.
Hey, I just called to say, hey, Jim, for once, I totally 100% agree with you
Oh, I'm sorry to
about
hear that.
every bit of this.
Why is that? Why is that?
It's just it's almost the same reasons you set up. Like, it's quicker. I can send a text quickly. I can just go craft what I want to say.
Yeah.
Get it done with. Same thing returning. If it's a matter of we need to talk more, if it's a person I'm interacting with more, well, we can always just, let's talk in half an hour or something like that. But the voicemails, they're usually junk. Just.
You touched on a point that you glossed over. I don't even know if you intended to do it, which I hadn't thought about. Another reason for text. You can edit a text, and it takes a second. You change a voice memo, you got to redo the whole deal. Am I not right about that?
Exactly. In fact, I
Bronwyn.
think you guys mentioned that before.
I meant to then.
That you can craft it, and oops, I made a mistake, and send it out and
Brilliant.
change that instantly. Yeah,
Exactly.
so thanks a lot.
Bronwyn, what do you think of the real estate guy sending the penis text?
You know what? I was talking to your person when
Yeah.
that was going on, so I kind of missed the.
Okay.
It was outrageous.
Look it up. Just Google
Well,
it.
it's just outrageous.
Penis text
Now,
is where you look up. Thank you, Bronwyn.
Jim was just criticizing someone, that would be me,
Yeah.
for taking too long to get to the point. You see
Yeah.
this text?
No.
Did Jim just criticize someone else for taking too long to get the point?
Okay, maybe.
Touche. And then Boston Maniac writes, my parents don't know how to send a text message or to leave a voicemail. They would benefit from a rotary phone interface. And here's another good point. You can read text messages during a Zoom meeting. You can't play those recorded
Brilliant.
ones.
Brilliant.
Yeah. That's
Let
a
me
good
say
point.
one other thing. I want to compliment myself, if I may.
Mhm.
When I call you and you don't respond because you're doing whatever you're doing,
I call you back. I
no,
call
no,
you
no.
back.
What voicemail do I leave you? None. Ever.
Right.
Because I assume you will see I called you.
Well,
I do
I
not
think
burden you with
that's-
a voicemail.
That's what generally we do now,
Exactly.
right? You call your friends or you call your children, and they see that you've called, and they call you back.
Okay, let's get
Oh
to
my
it. Here
goodness.
is Marjorie.
This is a voice
Occasionally, Marjorie's
message?
one of the most honest people I've ever known, but not in this case. Here is a voicemail. Apparently, our staff, our coworkers,
Oh my God.
have the sound
It's
of a
making me
Marjorie
nervous.
voice message all ready for us. Here it is.
Oh, okay. Hello. How are you? Had a lovely day.
Okay. Okay.
What was that?
That's exactly our point. What was that? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. That was one of the better ones, I should say, in the grand scheme of things. So.
Okay,
Thank you for that.
Here's a millennial mom. She says, "Well, I've never bothered to send a voice message. There's nothing better than getting a voicemail from my almost 2-year-old.
Oh.
That mama will never get old."
Well, that's
How about
different.
that?
That's different. I mean,
yeah, don't you realize we had videos and voicemails and all these little things when our kids were little?
Yeah.
So you could do this kind
I
of
still
stuff.
have messages on my phone from my kids when they were in single digits.
Yeah,
and they're
that's.
28
I wish
and
I'd
30.
saved those.
Those are really
I
great
wish
to listen to.
they'd saved those. I don't have any of those anymore.
Okay, we're done, Marjorie.
We're done.
We're done.
Okay. Thank you very much for listening
Thank
to
you
another
very
edition
much.
of Boston Public Radio. Thank you to the people that came down to the Boston Public
Thank you all. We
Library.
really appreciate
We really
it.
appreciate that very much. You can keep up with us 24/7 by way
If
of
you want Marjorie to send you a voicemail, leave your cell phone number and she'll do it. It'll work out great.
Okay. On Monday, we're going to be joined for Ask the Doctor with Boston
great.
Medical Center's Dr.
That's
Catherine Gergen-Barnett. You can talk to her about COVID, or you can talk to her about any medical thing. Bob Kuttner's going to be with us. He's from the American Prospect, and he's got a great new book out. Great. Would you call him an economist? I guess
He is an economist. That's what I call him.
Yeah, he's an economist, so he's great. And the ground truth, Charlie Sennett, will be with us. Food writer Corby Kummer and the Reverends Irene Monroe and Emmett G. Price III. We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Mackenzie Farkas. Additional support from Brendan Deedy and Fernando Cervantes. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker. Bill Piacitelli is running the board for John today. He's got the day off. Our executive producer is Jamie Bologna. A special thanks to the BPL team here down at the library, Sai Patel and Angelica Marrero. Jim is not on TV tonight.
No, but let me just say, the reason those last couple of names really matter and some others, getting this music to work as beautifully and with excellent sound is really a big deal, and they do a fabulous
That's right.
job.
I want you to know, we tried to do this a few years ago, and sometimes it didn't go well.
Yeah.
Remember that, Jim?
No.
That was very embarrassing. We
Thank
had a
you.
few disasters, so not anymore. We're happy about that. As I said before, Jim is not on TV tonight,
No,
but
I'm not.
Adam Riley is on at 7 o'clock.
Soraya Wintersmith's
talking
sitting
about
in
politics.
tonight.
Oh, Soraya Wintersmith
She's
is sitting
hosting
in.
tonight,
Okay,
yeah.
she's an expert on political matters. She covers
She
the
is.
city of Boston for
does.
us, and they talk about the elections that are coming up. We also have not Adam Riley, but we have
Whoever.
Is Basic Black on tonight? I think it's back on
I really
tonight
don't know, Marjorie.
at 7:30, and we have Jared Bowen, of course, on at
We do.
8:30. So we get a lot of stuff
There
on
you
TV
go.
tonight. Thanks again for tuning in today. Have a nice weekend. I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim Bradley.
And I'll just repeat myself. Thanks again for tuning in today, and I hope you can tune in again on Monday. See you
Bye.
later.